Happy Monday, everybody. As just about everybody is all the way back in school now. If you've got kids and they're on their way and you're packing up the car, we appreciate you taking us along for the ride, however you might be listening to us, and we'll get to that a little bit later on. Good morning, James Boyd, Kevin Bowen, Mark Dykton. Practice again for the Colts, but no games over the weekend. We'll be talking about that. Mark, I know you got a bunch of little kids, some going to school, some in preschool, some everywhere else, and it's going to be...
Whoa, don't tell me about kids I don't have.
I was about to say, everywhere else.
For a while,
Papa was a Rolling Stone, huh?
For a while there, like every other month, we'd show up and Mark was getting ready to have another kid again. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how that's still going. But my question
as far
is,
as I know,
you guys are all over the place, right? Elementary school, preschool, and what's going on there? Because I know a lot of people are sharing that adventure with you.
Third, first, and preschool.
Okay,
that's where we're at right now.
So the two older ones go to the same school.
Same school.
Right,
yep.
That's not such a bad
and the
deal.
two older ones, older than those guys, you're not really sure because you haven't been
I
around.
need a 23andMe for that one.
and Kevin, have we had an official first day of school yet?
Yeah, last week, what was that, week ago Monday, Max started, Wednesday for Rosie. So, yeah, they are back in the saddle, very happy. I think, yeah, like you said, a few lingering schools will start up this week. So, I've noticed a little bit, although that was a pretty good crowd, I thought, yesterday for the Heat. But I've noticed crowds a little quieter at Grand Park. We'll see what a Monday 4 o'clock session brings today. But, yes, it was certainly a hot one, both Saturday and Sunday out there.
Speaking of yesterday and Saturday as well, what did we see, James Boyd, especially from the quarterback position? What is the hand situation for one Anthony Richardson right now?
I think the biggest thing is that he's practicing fully. I thought Saturday's practice, and Kevin can speak to this, was pretty bad. He did not look good to me. He was 1 of 6 passing, I believe, in the team periods. Anthony Richardson, that is. Daniel Jones was 5 of 6. And so I don't know how much of that was the pinky and how much of that was just Anthony, because he has been up and down throughout training camp. I thought yesterday was a little bit better for him. I thought Daniel Jones started off rough yesterday, kind of ended strong, and then Anthony was a lot more steadier yesterday than he was the day before. But overall, it has been what I have expected from both quarterbacks. Neither one has looked great throughout camp, but if I had to call a leader in the clubhouse right now, maybe I'd lean slightly towards Daniel Jones just because of the health factor and him not having the pinky issue and obviously not having to come out of a game early. But even then, I don't feel like there is some, landslide victory here just yet.
Kevin, talk a little bit about that quarterback. I don't know if you want to call it, I guess it is a full-blown competition. We haven't seen either guy just grab it by the throat and say, I'm the quarterback and the leader of this football team yet, have we?
No. I think that's pretty much a fair statement. As James pointed out, Saturday was one of the few days, I think, of this camp where you had two guys at the end of the spectrum. I don't think we had that too often in, 11 practices up there in Westfield. I thought Jones was definitely better than Richardson. And then yesterday, as James pointed out, Jones got off to one of his worst starts, I think, of the entire camp. And I thought Richardson honestly had a little bit more of a just kind of like a dink and dunk day. It was like he was finding running backs like it was nobody's business. And that's really not what he does there. Sounds like today will be very lively. Shane Steichen said it'll kind of have a scrimmage feel to it, so we'll see if it's like that night practice about 10 days ago, which was a really active session. They're scheduled to go an hour and 40 minutes today from 4 o'clock to 5:40, and this is it for Colts on Colts. This is the final Colts v. Colts practice of camp. Again, Thursday, a joint practice with Green Bay. Shane did clarify the preseason playing time for the Packers game on Saturday, so we'll definitely get to that. And honestly, outside of quarterback, I'd say the biggest news just from the weekend, or maybe yesterday in particular, it's probably the longest injury report we've had at camp. And it's not just the length and sheer numbers. It's the guys that are not participating right now or the guys that left practice yesterday. So we'll definitely get to that here on this Monday morning.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a few minutes. J&B is going to be out at Colts camp today, so make sure you stop by and wave at him as the Colts get going at 4 o'clock today. J&B, of course, does his show every day from 3 to 6. So I know we had a couple of practices Saturday and Sunday, JB. We had a fever game on Saturday night. What did your sports weekend consist of? Just working?
Yeah, being hot and working. Yep.
James, I was telling him before the show started, Mark, the dude looks good in a bucket hat. I can't pull a bucket hat off. It looks
so if he looks good,
goofy.
and the fact you said nothing to me, that means I look bad in a bucket hat.
Well, you're always just wearing a hat.
No, he had the bucket hat on.
Oh, I am.
Did you have the bucket hat?
Yeah, he's team bucket hat during camp. I will say I got a chance to hoop with JMV yesterday morning before training camp.
Other than the parking lot of Legends Golf Course.
Exactly. That was pretty fun. It went over to Southport, and I do want to know, for those listening, feel free to chime in. I don't know the difference. I can't taste the difference, put it like that, in the South Side longs and then the one over by IMS. People tell me there's a difference. I've been to both multiple times. Maybe I'm just like the guy with the worst taste buds ever. But if there's a difference, people always tell me, oh, there's a difference. And they don't tell me what the difference is. So if you want to clarify that, anybody listening,
I
feel
think
free
the
to call in or
difference
something.
is the one on the north side is your spot, or the one on the south side is your spot. I think
That's
that's
what
the
because
difference.
I'm like, I truly cannot tell. Both are amazing to me. So yeah, usually when I go hoop with JMV over at Southport, I'll stop by Longs afterwards. So that was a nice morning, and then went home, got some rest, and then got out there in the heat again for training camp. It is unrelenting, but that is what time of year we're in right now.
You'll appreciate this, James. Went to the Indians game yesterday. The giveaway, bucket hats for the kids.
There we go.
Ooh,
Yeah.
nice. Are they
Reversible too.
Yes, I am
Nice.
just listening to the Franciscan healthcare, system and
What
their
a great
doctor.
gift.
Yeah.
That
And
is
it was,
actually a good
it was
gift.
mascot day too. So there's mascots from all over like sports out there. So the Tampa Bay Rays guy
I was
was
gonna say, what's the
running
most
around.
random one that you saw?
Mr. and Mrs. Redlegs. The random one was like, oh god, I got to look up his name. He's like a space cowboy. I'm like, who is this? Who is this guy?
Sounds like a
Where'd
Toy
you come
Story
from?
character.
I bring up the bucket hat thing, though, because I brought it in today. I standing on the side of the road when the Tour de France was coming by a couple of weeks ago. They throw out, they have a big caravan that shows up about an hour before the race actually gets there. And it lasts for like 30 minutes, and people are just hawking products and throwing things off the side, and you can collect whatever. And usually it's almost like going trick-or-treating at the end of the day. You got this bag and all this stuff in it. And one of them was the polka dot jersey bucket hat. And I tried to put it on, and I just looked ridiculous in the thing. So now it goes up on the wall.
So the most
in the
random one
office.
was Orion, who's the mascot for the Sugarland Space Cowboys, the AAA affiliate of the Houston Astros.
Okay.
Okay.
I was like, who is this guy? I
Now
never heard of
you
him
know.
before.
Are
You're-
these the real mascots?
Yes, they were the real ones. So Freddie Fever was there, Blue, Boomer.
But I mean, like, is it the same person?
oh, I don't know. I'm not lifting
Don't
heads
ruin
there.
my childhood here.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I feel like Blue and Boomer are everywhere.
I will
don't
say
know.
this though.
The kids
If-
don't
if-
know the difference.
As far as mascots go, what will Blue's reaction be to yesterday in seeing Kenny Moore leave practice early,
Ooh.
Alec Pierce leave practice early, and then Kevin, I believe in our post game or post practice media session with Shane Steichen, the first 5 or 6 questions were injuries. I almost feel like he should have just came out there with a list and a clipboard and just read it off like he was reading attendance or something.
Yeah, yesterday they were down 4 of their 5 corners, 4 of their top 5 corners. When Kenny exited, and yeah, Kenny left with a knee injury. Alec Pierce with a groin. So yeah, you hope obviously you avoid the catastrophic nature to Justin Wally's injury, for example, from last week there. So again, it was easily the most injury-riddled day we have seen at camp. Some of it is just natural. This is day 11. This is kind of how the cycle goes. And really, today will end a 3 straight practice stretch here, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. After this, it gets very quiet for the Colts. Again, Thursday is the last time we watch them in a training camp practice. So they'll have the joint practice Thursday. They will then have the preseason game against Green Bay on Saturday. Next week, it's over. I mean, there's no Grand Park next week. There's no joint practice with Cincinnati next week. Yes, they have their final preseason game a week from Saturday down there in Cincinnati, but, it's a little early. I don't know. It feels like an earlier end. I could be wrong on that. It just feels like a little bit of earlier end to training camp. So, yeah, unfortunately, the injury questions were abound to Shane Steichen yesterday.
All right, we got a lot to do today. Got an exciting piece of news as far as everybody who listens and likes to contribute to the show. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. We've got the check down coming up in just a moment and some big results from IndyCar as well. Stay with us as we get right to it on 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. Happy Monday, edging closer and closer to the start of the NFL regular season. We got a lot of work to do. We'll get to that in just a moment here. A couple of practices over the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. And the Colts, JB, we were talking about this a moment ago, starting to fill up the training room right now. What are the serious injuries? What do we think are just going to be bumps and bruises? Do we know?
We don't know. Shane Steichen didn't give us really a specific timeline for any of the injuries, but Alec Pierce has a groin injury, I believe. Kenny Moore is dealing with the knee injury. Those are the two big ones from yesterday. And on top of the fact that Jalen Jones and Juju Brents remain out with hamstring injuries. And like I said, Shane Steichen has no timeline for their return.
Feels like one of the stars of camp, Kevin Bone, has been a young defensive lineman, initials LL.
Yes, Latu, I thought yesterday, again, with the full pads, really, ever since they've come on, I thought he's been very, very disruptive. They don't maybe blow dead every single sack, but Latu, I thought, was, again, in the backfield a whole lot yesterday. Certainly you were hoping and want him to take a big jump, and Braden Smith and Bernard Ryman are out there virtually every practice, so that's pretty good competition that he is going against. And it sounds like, I know he played a series on Thursday that would have been against Baltimore. It sounds like those defensive starters will play around a quarter on Saturday against Green Bay, which is definitely not something I thought would be the case, but Shane Steichen did mention that yesterday.
All right, as far as practice for the Colts, they get a little bit of a break now before the Green Bay Packers come into town later this week.
Well, they will practice today, so not a break just yet. They'll go for an hour and 40 minutes today in what I sounds like will be a pretty lively practice. Nothing Tuesday, nothing Wednesday. But yeah, today, by all accounts, this will be one of their bigger, more intense practices of camp.
JMV's out there, too.
Yeah, JMV will be there from 3 to 6, and he would appreciate if you said hello to him. And I don't know if he's taking that basket with him everywhere he goes now. James, he was lobbying for that at the golf tournament.
He might want to. I know he had a pretty good shooting outing. He told me he didn't lose any of the shooting competitions. I heard that he lost one. So I don't know who the official scorekeeper is, but I don't know if JMV is padding the stats at all. But that's my guy. I was glad to see him yesterday. And, again, he just runs nonstop. He looks really good.
All right. Checking other things over the weekend. It was Saturday night. But the Indiana Fever come up with a win over at the Fieldhouse. They beat the Chicago Sky 92-70. Still no Caitlin Clark. Angel Reese did not play for the Sky. Tell you who did play, Kevin. Kelsey Mitchell, 26. Lexi Hall now inserted into the starting lineup at, I suppose, that point guard position, 17. Sophie Cunningham had 16, 10 of which came before the half. And Aaliyah Boston had 15. And they were in control of that game from pretty much beginning to end.
They continue to absolutely own the Chicago Sky, no matter who was on the floor. The assist number for Mitchell, too, to have, what she have, 7 or 8 assists.
8 assists.
Yeah.
One turnover.
That's big time from her, and not just being a pure scorer. And you need it right now with their point guard situation. Lexi Hall snapping out of this kind of post-All-Star funk that she has been in. And I saw yesterday they signed Odyssey Sims. I definitely recall her way back in her days at Baylor. She's most recently been with the Spark, so medical hardships, unfortunately for the Fever. They've had to have a lot of them here this season, and so we'll see what type of point guard depth she can give them, because they'll play tomorrow night. And, again, the Caitlin Clark return does not seem to be anything very imminent.
We'll say real quick, though, Natasha Howard had this to say on Twitter yesterday. We will always be fighting for each other, but we feel this fight is a little different with our girls out of the lineup. All the hard work they've put in over the season won't go unnoticed. Win or lose, just know that we are fighting to the end for Sid, Caitlin Clark, and Ari. And then she ended it by saying, "See you soon, CC." So hopefully that means Caitlin Clark will be back sooner rather than later.
We hope so. The Fever will be back in action tomorrow night at home against the Dallas Wings. That one starts at 7:30. You'll be able to hear it live beginning at 7:15 with the Fan pregame show and Eddie Garrison. Here on The Fan, the Fever Focus right now brought to you by, and after every game, by Payless Liquors. Get more and pay less at Payless Liquors. IndyCar has a champion. Again, for the 4th time, Alex Palou has picked up the title for the entire circuit, even though they've still got some racing to do. Will Power got the victory in Portland, got past Christian Lundgaard, but Alex Palou continues to be the dominant racer on this circuit right now.
Yeah, it is his world, and we're just all living in it. I think he finished 3rd in the race overall, so it's not even like he was fully on cruise control. Finally, Team Penske is in victory lane for the first time all year. Never a good year when you have to wait till the, 3rd to last race of the season for that. Will Power won out in Portland last year, but yeah, when Pato Ward had the little smoking issue early in the race and had to come to pit lane for quite a while, that was it for any sort of drama with the season series, and honestly, there wasn't really much drama anyway. So congrats to Alex Palou. It's been a year unlike really any other we've seen in quite some time at IndyCar, and 2 more races left for them, Milwaukee and Nashville.
All right. We'll also let you know that IU basketball continues their run in Puerto Rico, played their second game of a 3-game set of exhibition contests over the weekend. They beat the Serbian professional team 93-71. They rallied. How about this? They win by 22. They rallied from a 23-point deficit at one point in time, Evan. Took them a minute to get going, but once they got going, they were rolling. Trent Sisley had 21 points in that first game for them, and he has been terrific throughout the first couple of games. And Lamar Wilkerson getting high marks for his ability to distribute the basketball and keep everybody in focus. So sounds like it's been a pretty good run for them so far in Puerto Rico, getting the work done that they want to get done and starting to find out who these new guys are going to be altogether.
So is this Serbian team any good?
They were the Serbian professional team. That was what that's all I could find.
The Serbian professional team or a Serbian professional team?
I think it's, the story said the, but I'm going to go with a Serbian professional team.
Yeah, I saw somewhere where they compared the team they played the first game in Puerto Rico to an NAIA opponent. I would assume the Serbian professional team would be a little bit of a higher competition. I guess if they're down 20 in the game, boy, I don't know. Were they dusting off the list to see who they should get after Darren DeVries?
I'm looking at it right now.
Was Brad Stevens on line 1 for Scott Olsen?
Mega something, wasn't it?
Yeah,
James?
It's Super Bet.
Super Bet.
Mega Super Bet.
Mega Super Bet.
And it's a professional team based in Serbia. So I do not believe this is a Serbia national team.
Well, for purposes of the morning show, it's the Serbian professional team. Anyway, that's what's happening in college basketball as they get ready for their season as far as Major League Baseball is concerned. The Reds brought out the whooping sticks, 14-8, I should say, over the Pittsburgh Pirates. Everybody was getting with it. The Cardinals better than the Cubs yesterday, 3-2 in St. Louis was the final score in that one. White Sox beat the Guardians by a score of 6-4. And did you see the Storm Chasers edge past the Indians 6-1 yesterday? Is that the game you went to?
I was in attendance for that game, yeah.
All right.
Sweating my butt off. I can't imagine being a mascot out there yesterday.
The amount of showers I took this weekend was crazy.
Yeah.
Reds will open a series against the Phillies later on this evening. They'll be at home. Rockies play in St. Louis. The White Sox will start hosting the Detroit Tigers. Cubs have the day off, and the Indians have the day off. Anything else you guys want to throw in from over the weekend?
That covers it, really. Yeah.
James, anything you want to throw in?
I think we have something we can certainly discuss on the other side of the break. Mike Sando, who is one of our national NFL reporters, longtime guy on the NFL beats and national scene. He put out his QB tiers today. And Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones are both on the list. We can kind of dive into what some of these coaches and execs had to say anonymously, of course, about both quarterbacks. I find it interesting. I look forward to this every year to figure out, okay, who's, the top-rated quarterback in the league, who's not, this and that. But, yeah, it's an interesting breakdown. And certainly, I think, a different viewpoint of the QB competition and really the QB situation overall in Indianapolis.
All right, we'll talk about that next, and I've got some news for you in terms of being able to communicate with us all the time. We'll do it all after the break as we continue in 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. As everybody gets back to school and a lot of kids are leaving for college, James and KB and I were all just reminiscing over our early college starts. And I had told you guys, my first semester in college was not academically memorable, James. It was a lot of nonsense going on.
I can't relate. I was a great student. Great student.
And Kevin, you're in charge now.
Well, that's a very loose term.
Oh, no, I went down to that classroom. He was running it like it was, the Army. Stand here. You jump when I say jump. You use AP style when I say use it. It was very strict.
Kevin walks around with a yardstick, just like smacking it against his hand.
Final 8 weeks.
We will be disciplined.
Of the spring semester, for the most part, these kids are juniors and seniors, slightly different than what K201 or finite. I'm trying to think of the other classes I had. Walking up the steps of Ballantine Hall, I'm like out of breath getting to floor 8.
Oh man, but it's all good now, right? You're the cool professor. Everybody can't wait to take your class.
I don't think I fall into that category.
I think you might. I don't know.
I do.
Well, I told you, me and him wouldn't have got along very well because I was late every day. Well, no, I would have got along if he told me I would lose points on my grade if I came late.
It surprises me that you were a routinely late individual. You don't strike me as that.
Yeah, well, I try to show up when I'm getting paid. I try to show up on time. That's number one. And then number two, I figured, the class is already paid for, right? It is what it is. It doesn't affect you at all. So I would show up, not super late, but a couple of minutes.
Well, we all three made it through, and we're here now, right? So that's
how that works. I will say, though, one quarterback or one player who could still probably be in college is Anthony Richardson. And over the weekend, or actually this morning, our Mike Sando at The Athletic, and I would encourage you all, if you have a athletic subscription, to check it out later on today. And if you don't, I'll read a couple of things here from his QB tiers. So every year, the gist of it is that Mike Sando will talk to about 50 executives, coaches, high-ranking officials in the NFL about the quarterbacks, and they'll ask them to rank them. And that usually means basically 1 through 32 or 1 through 33, depending on how many quarterbacks are in positions to potentially start. And Daniel Jones is rated 30th. Anthony Richardson is rated 32. And one of the quotes that really stuck out to me, Kevin, when I'm reading this is, I think it's a pipe dream right now based on what I have seen to say he is a starter in the NFL. The accuracy is not there. If you want to do college football RPO type stuff, that is your guy. But some of the stuff last year was not starter quality. And on top of that, as I'm reading through this piece, he says that the voters in this poll remain mystified that Richardson's decision to briefly exit a Week 8 game at Houston was because he was too tired. And then they have one head coach saying anonymously, that is a tough one to overcome. If you can, more power to you. So it's honestly interesting to always hear the other perspective outside of Indianapolis. And that sounds like that tap out, man. He cannot shake that. And the only way to do that is to play well and play well for a long time. And I'm kind of, I think we've gotten over it. But, man, nationally, that is probably still the one thing everyone thinks of when they hear about Anthony Richardson. Oh, yeah, that's the guy that tapped out.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't know. I probably do a couple of different radio hits across the U.S. each month, and that play gets brought up more than anything else.
Yep.
When it comes to Richardson. Every time his name is brought up, it seems like one of the two hosts or three hosts, whatever it is, brings up that moment there. So, yeah, I mean, I think from kind of a football, you're playing the quarterback position moment, all of it, it is something that rubs people the wrong way. It's kind of funny. I think back to when that happened, Week 8 last year. They played the Vikings the very next week, and Brian Flores was the defensive coordinator, and, he had a very, I thought, candid comment in regards to that play. He's like, yeah, I get that tapping out is not necessarily something a quarterback does, but did you watch the play itself?
Yeah.
Him shedding some 320, 30-pound defensive linemen and then nearly picking up a first down to kind of keep the Colts alive in that play. I guess on the Richardson front, kind of going off of that, James, and going back to our conversation Friday. For those that missed Friday's show, my issue with Richardson getting hurt in the preseason game wasn't that he got hurt at all. Frankly, I think 90-some% of quarterbacks would have gotten hurt on not a blind side, but on a hit that, he didn't see coming like that play. It was the fact that he misidentified the free rusher. That, to me, was more of the bigger issue. And, when I said that on air and, as whatever, that clip started to make the rounds, some people pushed back on it and said, he's still a rookie in games played. Which, again, he has started 15 games in the NFL. So I'll ask you guys this. When is that comment no longer an acceptable excuse for Anthony Richardson? When do we stop saying he's a rookie in games played?
I think this year. I think this is it. This is do it or go home at this point in time. This is his third training camp now. He's had a full season, pretty much a full season of starts. Has it been 17?
No,
not quite.
15.
15, pretty close. You got to start showing who you are. I mean, if nothing else, you've had training camps, you've had OTAs, well, unless you're hurt again, which seems to be the problem. I do think the biggest problem for him nationally with that tap out is there has been nothing from the Colts to make national news other than that.
Right.
And
Very
so
good point.
that's the last thing most people nationally have heard about the Indianapolis Colts. For us, there's the news flow continues. There's all kinds of things that have gone on. We've had a lot of water under the bridge locally since then, but nationally, Kevin, what else has anybody had to hear about or talk about the Indianapolis Colts since that?
You know why I don't want to hear that line anymore? And honestly, I probably gave it up last year because of two things. One, coaches and players love to preach the importance of mental reps. I don't believe it. I believe it's a bunch of baloney, honestly, to always use that as a teaching tool or something that makes you better. I think players get better by playing. So miss me if I'm just not mystified by the mental reps that Anthony Richardson got when he was sidelined due to the shoulder, or due to his back, or due to a concussion. Like, I just don't care at all. Number two, his contract doesn't freeze. So who cares if technically he hasn't played enough games to be a sophomore or a second-year player in the NFL? He is, though. He's going into his third season. And so you have to have a decision there soon, depending on his future with the franchise. And so I don't look at him as a rookie. I haven't looked at him as a rookie in a long time, and I think that excuse, honestly, is sort of weak. And I think I even think that he would think that. I don't think that he views himself as a rookie. He shouldn't. He's not. So, I mean, say it's because of injuries or because of the benching, and that's the other damning part. Had he not been benched for 2 games, he would have 17 starts underneath his belt. So I just can't buy into that one, Kevin. I hear people saying that, but I'm not with it at all.
Yeah, it's been 28 months since he entered the NFL. Think about that. 2+ years since he's entered the NFL. And my question for you, KB, do you see enough wow plays in camp even where you say to yourself, okay, yeah, I can be patient. It's there. Something's happening here. Is there enough going on there where you're at least still hanging on to the hope that he can be a legitimate starter in the National Football League?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've said this before. I would start Richardson just to get to the final answer as quickly as possible.
I don't blame you for that.
Yeah, that's just kind of my general thought, I guess, to put it very succinctly. I don't need to watch Daniel Jones play football for me to know that, the Colts have got to find the franchise quarterback at some point, and to me, it's probably likely going to come in a future draft here. But I guess in regards to your question, Jeff, specifically, I would say this has been one of the quieter camps for like big plays with Richardson. Yesterday he had one of his bigger plays. If you simply were just like doing a box score of yesterday's practice, ironically, I thought it was a bit of an underthrown deep ball that Alec Pierce made just a patented Alec Pierce play on it. Coming back to the football.
Yeah, that was not a good throw.
And he adjusted to it beautifully like Pierce does. And an undrafted corner, I think in Jonathan Edwards, if I'm not mistaken, was in coverage on the play. That's kind of where the Colts are at right now, cornerback-wise. Again, they were down 4 of their top 5 corners. Yesterday, Pierce made a wonderful play on it. But for the most part, James, I feel like we have lacked the Richardson big plays, which, again, I don't think is the worst thing in the world. Like, if you were going to sit here 11 days into practice and say, hey, what would you rather have from Richardson? 4 or 5 viral clips on Twitter that all of a sudden make everybody freak out, or 65% passing? You'd rather have
the boring stuff that we forget. Yeah.
Passing. Yeah. I mentioned to lead off the show, I thought yesterday was one of the heaviest running back days he's had. I mean, that was the most checkdowns I can remember from Richardson. You know, he ended 11 of 16, 11 of 17. I forget what the exact numbers were. And that's like, again, that's a nice percentage for him. And it was filled with just kind of dink and dunks and dump offs. And so that to me, Jeff, is a little bit more of kind of what you want to see, some of the methodical stuff from him. Sure, when he gets in the regular season, considering he had some shoulder soreness in the spring, yeah, you do want to see him hit on those big plays. But if you're going to see real growth from him, it's got to come, again, from the boring reel. Mm-hmm. And I think he has been better in that area. But I don't know. Thursday just really stood out to me of just, and I get it's kind of a small sample size. And, you know, we'll have a joint practice this week. We'll have another preseason game Saturday. Sounds like Richardson, the plan is for him to play a quarter and a half. So he'll get further evaluations.
Right.
But if I'm Shane Steichen, Thursday night would have really bothered me.
I'm just curious, do you think that it was a concerted effort, that people were in his ear and saying, Anthony, we're really going to work on checkdowns today? I want you to get used to the fact that it's not always going to be there. Today, I just want you to look for the checkdowns. Make those plays. Sometimes it's okay to make a safe play. I want you to get comfortable with that. JB, is there anything that you think by design they were like, just take care of the football today?
Yes, but I think they've been telling him that probably for a while now. And it's just a matter of will you go out there and execute it. I do think that the offense, at least after he came back from being benched last year, was more tailored towards him being a safer quarterback, because there were times early in last year's campaign where I thought, what kind of offense are you running? Peyton Manning is not out there. Why are you running, dropping back and throwing it so many times when Anthony has proven that he's not that kind of passer at this level? So I do think there is a concerted effort there. Now, it comes down to, can you do it? Can you do it consistently enough? And also, can you still move the chains? Because I think sometimes we have this idea in our heads. We're like, okay, if he just plays it safe and dinks and dunks, they'll go down there and score. But dink and dunk offense doesn't work for anybody in the NFL. I would honestly like to know, of the top 5 offenses last year, how many of them really didn't push the ball down the field. And I'm thinking I know Kansas City kind of struggled to push the ball down the field, but they also have Patrick Mahomes. So I don't care who's out there with them. You just know they're going to score points because that's what they do eventually. But most offenses, you still need that explosive element. And so you can't take that, totally away from him at all. But I am curious to see how, again, he continues to build with that maturity aspect in his game. And on top of that, with Anthony, I'm curious just if at all he knows the injury stuff is really out there, because that's what he's fighting more than anything else. Inaccuracy, immaturity, but the injury prone nature of who he is. I'm curious how that weighs on him, and if he has to kind of push that aside or talk to somebody about it, because I feel like that would be a lot to deal with, even for yourself mentally. I know he plays it off pretty cool, but internally, I'm truly wondering, how do you feel when dang, man, this happened again?
Yeah, I think it's a brilliant point you bring up, James, and I want to share what I saw, and I believe you saw as well yesterday at practice.
Yeah.
There was a moment in one of the final, I think it was the second to last team period of practice, where I think it was Tyquan Lewis and somebody else combined on one of those. Is it a sack? Is it not a sack?
Yeah.
And they let the play finish out, and Richardson kind of semi-scrambles up in the pocket, ends up running a little bit, and as he's jogging, running, however you want to describe it, he kind of pulls up a little bit.
Yeah.
And he reaches down for kind of like the left lower leg area. And if it's anybody else on the practice field, boy, I don't know if I think too much of it. And maybe the injuries that played into yesterday had me a little bit more of like, gosh, I feel like everyone's getting hurt. Kenny Moore's leaving and Alec Pierce is leaving. So all of a sudden I'm watching Anthony. I'm like, oh, man, can you imagine if this is something again? He kind of goes back to the huddle. Again, he's not totally discrediting it. He's occasionally favoring it. And at no point did anybody from the medical staff go over to him and take a look at it. No point did he go out of his way to, confront somebody from the medical staff, which, again, if there's anything that happens on a training camp practice field, usually at least something is looked at. He stayed in there and finished practice. You actually asked Shane Steichen about it. I don't even know if Shane realized what had happened based off his answer there.
Right. He said he hadn't seen it and AR is fine, but I was just thinking, hey, if you go back and watch the tape, it'll show you that after one of those runs, Kevin, I wasn't like making it up, obviously. There was some limping going on.
I think it was worth asking the question, and so I'm glad that you did. But it was one of those moments where I sat there, and I think I was standing next to Joel A. Erickson when it happened. Both of us were talking about, man, if you were him, the last thing you would want to be doing is showing
exactly
any sort of potential injury in this situation. Like, it's reached that point in his career where you have to be thinking about, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening to me again. And again, by all accounts, I mean, I assume he'll practice today and he'll be fine. But yeah, to kind of answer that, James, I do think that is something that at least I think about. And he maybe hasn't shared as much of that, in a interview session. But how would you not? If everything has happened like it has for him so far.
I just feel bad for Shane Steichen. He's going through the paces, and he gets done with practice, and all of a sudden James Boyd is like, hey, did you see your quarterback got hurt again? Can you imagine in his mind all of a sudden, wait, what? What?
Yeah, I mean, he's got to be paying attention to all that stuff.
Man.
I am curious, though, Kevin. Were you surprised that they're going to continue to start Daniel Jones?
Oh, on Saturday?
Yeah, but given the way he explained it, it kind of makes sense, I guess.
So what, do they give him 2 series? Something like that?
Yeah, so they're going to flip what the original plan was. I mean, so...
For those listening, let's clarify. So Daniel Jones will still start in the second preseason game despite Anthony Richardson being knocked out pretty early in the first preseason game. However, according to Shane Steichen, he'll get 2 series, and then Anthony Richardson will come in and finish out the first half. But then overall, he said the starters, I guess on both sides of the ball, are only going to play about a quarter. So in theory, Anthony Richardson should get about, a half a quarter with a starting offensive line, starting receivers, all those things. And then he'll continue to play throughout that second quarter with some of the backups, I would imagine.
I mean, nothing's perfect, I think, when you're trying to figure out this playing time. To me,
it's a little fluid.
To me, this makes the most sense.
Yeah.
Of, okay, you get Richardson, assuming he can stay healthy, the quarter and a half that Daniel Jones got on Thursday against Baltimore. And then we'll see what happens come next Sunday or Monday. Shane committed very early in camp to, we're going to let this play out. And even what? I would say, I'm trying to think of when he said that they'll split reps in the preseason. Maybe he did that last week, James, when we asked him. When I asked him about the Cincinnati game next Saturday, yesterday, he didn't commit to anything there. So that's the question now I have for this week. Is today, is Thursday, and is Saturday, are those the final 3 days of this competition? Or will there be more next week? Will that Cincinnati game, is that a competition game? Or is that a dress rehearsal for the regular season? Because teams around the NFL largely treat it as dress rehearsal. Are the Colts going to sit there and say, nope, we're still going to have this play out for one more week? I do think there's one quarterback element to this competition that you can sit here and say, wow, I am stunned that these 2 quarterbacks have done this in camp. And it's a positive. I do want to share that coming up in a few. And both of them fall into this category. It's not just one or the other. But, James, I am interested in today's scrimmage, is how Shane Steichen largely described it.
Yeah.
For today's practice, an hour and 40 minutes. Thursday's joint practice. Saturday against Green Bay. Is that it for this quarterback competition? Because so far, we haven't heard Shane say anything past that.
Right.
That would be a question I would have. Again, training camp's over after Thursday. So we won't get to see anything else. The Colts will, I think, scale it down a little bit. They won't go full into regular season practice mode, but they'll start to scale it down a little bit. There's no joint practice with Cincinnati next week. So, I don't know. White smoke, potentially.
Yeah, you got that scrimmage today. Then you've got the joint practice, and then you got a preseason game. Both quarterbacks essentially should have had their equal run on it. I wouldn't be surprised if we come out of that Green Bay game and Shane Steichen decides who's going to start in week number 1.
I did think, if you want to look at Saturday, Sunday, I thought arguably Richardson's worst practice day was Saturday. And then yesterday, I thought Jones, that first period yesterday was arguably his worst.
Yeah, that was bad.
And I think it's worth pointing out, that was a ton of downfield throwing.
Yeah.
Which is a big question mark with him.
I think we were all like, oh, my goodness, he threw it down the field.
Right. You were stunned to see him throw it down the field as much. Of course, it hit the ground a whole lot.
Right.
So Richardson's struggle through camp is the red zone.
Yep.
Clearly. and Jones' struggle is down the field, which I guess is pretty par for the course and what we're used to with those two.
Maybe they're planning to do like a surgery so they can attach both of them together to make one competent quarterback.
I was going to say,
would be nice,
honestly,
yeah.
I thought Mark was going to go the whole 2-quarterback route where, we're down the red zone.
No.
All right, Daniel Jones, you're in.
We're getting
they
to Halloween
did that.
time. We're stitching people
I think
together.
they did that to end a game or end a season one year. They had, was it like Ryan Lindley was like the 2-minute quarterback and Josh Freeman was like
Lord
the
have mercy.
other
Mm-hmm.
part of the field quarterback.
And how'd that work out?
I actually think it might have worked for that one game.
Yeah.
One time.
One for like 15 minutes. It's Fan Morning Show with KBJB, Jeff, Mark Dykton over there. Some exciting news, different way to get back at us from now on. We are starting today the fan text line at 239-1070. All you got to do is text us any of your thoughts, any of your feedback, thoughts on the game, thoughts on the show, thoughts on Mark and his diet and how he gets things for Kevin
What?
after losing.
I was going to say, where is this going?
obscure.
Because all you talked about over the last week was the food you ate at the state fair.
Mark
I'm just
talked
promoting
about
a good time.
Yeah, gonna say, talking
that's
about
good
this,
stuff, man.
2 days?
So we got that going on, 239-1070. Same phone number that you would call us up, but it's real easy. All you got to do is text us and make it short, sweet, and if we like it and we think it adds to the conversation, we will be more than happy to put it on, but we'll be starting to talk about that on all of our shows, 239-1070, the fan text line. Also today, you'll appreciate this one, JB. Happy birthday to the one and only Grant Rickard, who is 16 years old today.
Yes, sir.
And he and his older brother are both in the final stages of driving school and getting all their hours in before they get their actual license. They've been carting us all over the place on the weekends, doing a great job. He just started school. It's the third day of his year today. Happy birthday, Grant. 16 years old. Couldn't be prouder of the person you're becoming and the person you already are. And you've gotten to know him a little bit. Just a terrific young man.
You know, me and Grant are locked in for life at this point. And Grant, we'll be going to get your license after school later today.
James is picking him up from school. He's playing hooky.
Exactly. So, make
James
sure you
is showing
got
up
your...
in like the jean jacket with the Mustang, and he's like, "Come on, ditch school."
Exactly.
He's got a dentist appointment at 1. He
go.
won't be back.
He drives up with the shaded glass and he rolls the window down and he says, All right.
Yeah,
Let's get
music
in.
is blasting and everything. We got to go get the license today. You're old enough. It's time to do it.
All right. Have a great day, Grant. I will see you after school. And, of course, he is underway again with another year at the Brebeuf tennis program, too. So we're excited about that. So congratulations to him. Jake, have a great day at school as well. We'll talk to you both at the end of the day. Coming up in just a moment, we will get back to the Colts and what they've got going on this week. A lot happening there. We'll give you an update on the fever and how soon might we see Caitlin Clark. Well, we'll talk about that next as we continue. 93.5 and 107.5, The Fan. Everybody in a good mood this morning. It's a Monday, getting ready for your work week, getting ready for more action from the Colts with a joint practice. The Packers later this week, and then they'll be hosting them right on cue, Mark Dykton. They'll be hosting them at Lucas Oil. We'll talk to Chloe Peterson at 9 o'clock, Jake Arthur at 9:30.
I've got hate in my veins this week because I know that some
This week.
disgusting team from Wisconsin's coming to town.
This week, we opened up the fan text line a few minutes ago. Those are starting to roll in already. Mark, I know you've already had a couple of conversations this morning, but also initial text. People want to know what's going on with IU basketball, man. What's happening there? Looking forward to that. We talked about that a little bit in the check down, and they're in Puerto Rico for the past week, and I suppose that's probably really important for a team that's essentially 100% brand new. Coach, players, roster, everything, Kevin. It's got to be a nice little bump for them, I would think, to get together and hang out and learn about each other on and off the court.
Yeah, who needs welcome week? We can spend it in San Juan. So, they got one more game, I think, this morning, and then back to Bloomington. And certainly, you see, honestly, I think a lot of coaches, first-year coaches at various spots, they try to do the international game. I guess Puerto Rico qualifies as that, or try to take the international trip here. So, yeah, one more game left, and it sounded like the Saturday one was pretty wild, down by 1 million early on, and a big roaring comeback for the Fighting Darren DeVries. I'm sure IU Nation and Peegs was very calm during that.
Yeah, also, if you text us in, put your name at the very end of it, and we will put your name in on our side, and that means that every time you text moving forward, it'll show up with your name, your nickname, name, whatever you want us to refer to you as. We will do that, assuming, of course, Mark deems it safe for the air. And Mark's the guy.
I'm letting it all fly.
We'll decide that. Yeah, we'll be in trouble there. 812, though, says, inaugural text, who wins more games this year, IU football or the Colts? What do you think, Kevin? Who's going to win more games this year?
Boy.
And the Colts have a lot more
Colts
chances.
over-under is at 7.5. What's the IU over-under?
We say 8.5 the other day?
I know my answer. The Colts
I know
have won
mine,
more
too.
games than them. They have more chances, so there you go.
I don't know. I think that's a good debate. So if IU goes 9-3,
Do you think they're going 9-3?
what are the hard ones again? Oregon, Iowa,
Kennesaw
Penn State. And you're fighting Illini? I think that Illinois game is huge.
Well, that's a loss.
That's
So-
People are crazy high on Fernando Mendoza
Yeah.
and playing behind a legit offensive line. Like, people are like, hey, he might be the Colts quarterback next year.
Yeah, and then they'll play the Illini, and everyone will come back down to earth.
I think that's a great debate. More wins, IU or the Colts? Boy, I'm gonna have to simmer on that one. We're 3 weeks away from college football. I cannot wait for that.
It's going to be a lot of fun, but that's a great debate. You have to think about that. Even though a team plays 17, the other one plays 12, you still got to think about it.
Right. There's no Kennesaw State, Indiana State, and Old Dominion in the NFL.
No, probably not.
The AFC South is a gift, but it's not that big of a gift. I could go back and forth on that for a while, which is not a very ringing endorsement on Colts.
8.5 wins is for IU's over under.
Yeah.
So Vegas right now would say Indiana
Mhm.
by 1 win over the Colts. I teased this before the break, and I mean this, an outright positive. James Ward, do you have any idea where I'm going with this? An outright positive in the Colts quarterback battle. Both of these quarterbacks deserve praise for this. We are, 11? Was yesterday day 11 at Grand Park?
Yeah,
We're
something like that.
11 practices in between Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson. I have an outright positive from this battle. Do you have any idea?
They both practiced yesterday.
I knew you were going to go somewhere to blow the belt like that. They have thrown probably, I'd have to double check my math. I'm guessing they've thrown nearly 300 passes in team sessions when you add it all up. And if my math is correct, I believe they have only been picked off 3 combined times. So think about that. 3 interceptions in nearly 300 pass attempts. With a defense that is stickier coverage and a little bit more press man, and they're going to disguise some things. That's a positive, is it not?
I'll take anything I can get at this point in time. So, yes, positive.
Well, that sounded like a backhanded acceptance of that positivity. Is that not an outright positive?
It's an outright positive. And like I said, not only is it an outright positive, but we'll take any positive at this point in time. Why can't it be both at the same time?
I don't know. It sounded like when you heard what I was saying, you were kind of like, well, he's got a decent personality, but we'll see.
He's a nice guy.
Yeah. We'll see if we have a second date.
I needed to translate into something.
It's better than the alternative, is it not?
Yes, it is.
And James, I mean, again, you obviously have been out there for every single one of them. I don't think there's been like a ton of turnover-worthy balls either. Like, I don't sit here and think to myself, oh, man, the DBs have just dropped 5 or 6 interceptable balls. That, to me, is positive. Because, again, we've talked about this more with Richardson than Jones, because obviously Jones is a new arrival to the football team. One of the big reasons why I thought last year was such a step back for Anthony Richardson wasn't because the completion percentage was so low. Yes, that was part of it. But because the incompletions, too many of them were actual turnovers. Like, go back to the 3rd and 7 against Baltimore last Thursday night. That ball easily could have been picked off. Those are the plays that cannot happen. You need to sit there in that moment and realize 3rd and 7, we're on the fringe of field goal range. Going late over the middle of the field is a disastrous sort of potential opportunity. Just eat it. Throw it at two-hop it to Ashton Doolin for all I care, and let Spencer Schrader try and kick a long field goal for you. Because if you are late over the middle of the field on a 3rd and 7,
it's going the other way.
The defense is feasting.
Yeah.
And if that ball is picked off, then boom, you've taken at least probably 3 points off the board and given the defense an opportunity. So I genuinely mean that. The fact that they have not turned the ball over in 11-on-11s is a positive.
Here's Jason from Cicero on our text line. Honestly, that sounds like more of a negative for the defense to me.
Oh, come on. I'm talking purely quarterbacks.
Do you see the state that we've been put in, though, Kevin? We're all just like, give me something.
Yeah,
make it real.
There is part of it.
We also have Trevor from North Carolina saying that he missed Friday's show. So, he caught Friday's show, but he would like to go over the bases again.
Yeah.
1st, 2nd, and 3rd.
Okay.
So,
we can do that again.
Yeah.
Right, Kevin? You want to go down that road?
Well, you guys are not really providing a lot of context for people that might have missed Friday's show. You care to dabble in some more? Because there were people confused that Anthony Richardson was playing baseball and football.
I just responded to HR on line 1. I thought we had moved past this and I would be safe today.
People are asking, does this mean the YouTube chat is done?
By the end of the week, it will be, yes.
Oh, man.
Jeez.
Ooh.
With Boo. Have you seen some of the things get on that YouTube chat?
That's why Mark is here to block.
Mark hasn't blocked the YouTube chat in months.
I've tried. They
Mark
can just
is
make
the
new
Kembe
profiles.
Mutombo over there.
Yeah, he blocks somebody pretty much every day.
James, I know it's probably a hard one to answer, but more concern of Kenny Moore or Alec Pierce after yesterday and their injury situations?
That's a good question. Oh, Lord. Probably more concern over Kenny Moore based off of what I heard from, I believe it was you, Stephen Holder of ESPN, Nate Atkins of Indy Star. You all were over near where he had the injury.
Yeah, and to be fair, I literally caught him as he was heading inside. I did not
I believe
watch.
Nate saw it unfold, and he was saying Kenny, screamed out in some pretty real pain. And so from the optics standpoint, and I'm doing this, obviously third party kind of off of what Nate Atkins reported, that to me is probably more concerning because it seems more serious, just a reaction. And, with Alec Pierce, it sounds like it's a groin. And with groins, probably just got to sit down for a while. We might not see him again, assuming it's not something super severe. We probably won't see him again, I would imagine, in this preseason joint practice and the preseason game against the Green Bay Packers. At this point, you're probably just thinking, hey, get healthy for the regular season because we know what Alec Pierce can do. And to this point, I think he's had a pretty good camp, actually. I think that he's been probably the best receiver they've had outside of A.D. Mitchell in training camp.
Yeah, just to provide a little bit more color from yesterday. Pierce came back, tried to do some light jogging on the side field with one of the members of the athletic training staff. Very light. And then, honestly, I felt like he might have been limping a little bit more after that before calling it a day. So, you can get into the debate, who's the more important player. I think given your cornerback situation, it's probably Kenny with where you're at cornerback-wise with Justin Wally already lost for the year. Again, Jalen Jones and Juju Brents. It doesn't sound like they are going to be available. It is wild watching that starting defense come out for practice yesterday, James. I've got to check my roster of those cornerback numbers. I'm like, wait, who's 35? Who's 34? Who's 39? Like right now, those numbers are playing a ton of snaps for the Colts. Alec Pierce hit that first deep ball from Richardson to start practice yesterday on an undrafted free agent out of Tulane. I mean, that's the bio right now in your starting defense. So, we aren't at roster cuts. What are we? Is it 2 weeks from tomorrow? They just do the one big roster cut. Yeah, yep. 2 weeks from tomorrow, you'll cut from 90 to 53. Last year, they claimed a corner. Right now, given your injury situation, and that's without even this Kenny news, I would say corner is once again got to be a position that you look into, which is wild because at the start of camp, I would have called it one of the deeper positions on the team.
Yeah. People checking in all over the text line. Mark, they're looking for the Packers Suck ringtone from you.
Send me an email. I'll send it to you.
Got that?
Happily. I'll put it out like a spam email. I'll just send it to everybody.
Right. AJ wants to know, you're 9 of Chris Ballard, and we still have to hunt for anything positive. That's kind of where we're at. Like when you were talking about the positive there, we like it. I'm glad you found it. Let's hope that it continues.
Well,
we need to trust it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we're kind of turning this into a joke. I think it is an outright positive that the quarterbacks have not turned it over at an alarming rate. Now, it's training camp. You can obviously spend it in a couple of different sorts of ways. Well, that's not good for the defense. Okay, yeah, I get it. If somebody's good, then someone's got to be bad in training camp. But if you would have told me at the start of camp, Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson are going to throw 300 passes, I probably would have taken the over on 3 interceptions if we're going to play the over-under game.
That's fair.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm not like trying to scratch and claw for positives here. I'm not.
You know what, though? Jokes aside, to kind of piggyback off your point, Kevin, I will take it serious now. I got to get my jokes off. Anthony had, I believe, 12 interceptions last year in 11 games? That is untenable. So even if he's boring and perhaps he's inconsistent or inaccurate, whatever, if he doesn't turn it over, that is still an overwhelming positive for the offense.
Without a question.
Same for Daniel Jones. He had turnover issues last year in New York, and obviously he fizzled out there with the Giants. But that, to me, is also one thing that I think Shane Steichen's looking at and saying, if we can just be average in that category, because 12 interceptions in 11 starts is kind of crazy for someone who, obviously didn't really turn it over that much as a rookie. That's the thing about Anthony is I thought he regressed so much last year that it's become the overarching narrative of his career. But really, his rookie year was fine until he got hurt. But from a turnover standpoint, that was the big thing last year. You can't, if you're going to be inaccurate to a degree, you can also be turning the ball over a ton.
Yeah, ground out to second base, don't strike out.
It's got to be some of those things because, man, he flipped the field a few times in the other team's favor with some poor decisions last year.
It's Fan Morning Show. KB, JB, Jeff, Mark Dyked in with you this morning. Fan text line is up and running this morning. 239-1070. People starting to figure that out. And
they do have a question about the rest of the YouTube chats. So is everyone's YouTube chat getting shut down?
We're trying to figure it out, but it's the way of the world for the company and moving forward is the text line. So that's going to be the primary.
The stream will be alive.
The stream is not going anywhere.
Okay.
The stream itself is not going anywhere. But a quicker, more direct way to get back to us that we'll probably see it and be able to use it on the air is going to be the text line at 239-1070. And there's a lot of fun things we can do as far as giveaways and giving people discounts at certain advertisers and stuff like that. That'll be a lot of fun if you opt into those things. But 239-1070 is the number to call. And the other thing is, too, you'll be able to give us a voice to text. So maybe days after football games, people can just leave us a voice to text after the game. And, Mark, you can edit those things and put them on the air.
Sure, I'll come in at 2 a.m. to add even more of my duties.
Yeah.
It doesn't take as long.
I'm about to say, I don't think anybody in my real life leaves me a voice message.
I know. Usually if they leave a voicemail, it's a spam number at this point.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. People will start doing it.
I would be surprised. If I get a voicemail from someone I know, I'm like, are you okay?
Anyway, 239-1070.
I left a voicemail the other day, and you know how old I sounded?
What did you say?
Not only did I leave the voicemail, I also left my phone number on the voicemail.
Oh, I've done that too. And I repeated it too, like a true old man.
I do that for like doctor's offices.
Guilty as charged.
I'm like, Kevin, dear Lord, man. How old do you sound? I was so ashamed. I had to take a walk around the house.
Especially because it says your phone number these
It's
days
just
on
so
missed call.
pathetic.
Like, there's
It
no
was-
reason to add
But to
to
James'
it.
One of the more
point, if you're
embarrassing
calling up
things I've
like the
done in a while.
doctor's office or something like that, you want to make sure they get back to you, right?
Yeah, whenever it's like
Nah,
serious stuff.
This wasn't the doctor's office.
Yeah.
This
All
is
right.
just pathetic. By
This is
me.
to Maddie, to
So
his wife.
what was everyone's ringtone?
Call me
back in
back,
the day?
please.
Because that's one thing about you know what? Society went downhill when we lost ringtones. Okay, I would like to know what was everyone's ringtone back in the day. I think I might have had like Akon locked up or something, knowing I didn't spend a day of my life in jail.
All I remember was my buddy Jonathan Horn. When I would call him, I think it was Apple Bottom Jeans.
Woo-hoo,
would be the
okay.
Remember that, Kevin?
Okay.
Not his ringtone, but like that's what I would hear when I would call him. Right? Ring back? Is that a ring back? I'm trying to think what it was. Like that's what I heard when I would try to dial him up instead of the old dial tone there.
I probably had Limp Bizkit rolling or something.
Rolling, rolling,
There it is.
rolling, rolling.
Okay.
I'm so lame. I had the
Get it all for the
ESPN
nugget.
ringtone. Da-na-na, da-na-na.
Oh,
That was the first one I
Oh,
had.
yuck.
Mike Chappell's
Yeah,
got
I was
the,
working at ESPN at the
yeah.
time. What do you want?
Mike Chappell still has one, right? James, is it the
Yeah,
alien?
it's like,
Yeah.
it's like a UFO is landing.
right.
That's when we know Chap is getting a nice scoop.
It like goes off during press conferences.
Didn't
Yeah.
they have a thing where you could like individualize the ringtone for a few people? Like there'd be one for your wife, one for everybody else, something like that. Didn't they have that back in the day?
I think they might have.
Anyway, people starting to check in on the text line, and like I say, include your name on there, and we'll put it in. And every time you text from that point on, your name will show up, and it'll be a lot of fun. And people are starting to figure this out, and we'll get to some of these a little bit later on. I'm looking forward to that. But again, the week ahead for the Colts, Kevin, if you want to go see him practice, you're running out of time. You're running out of opportunities, correct?
Yeah, 2 left today at 4 o'clock, 4 to 5:40, and then is Thursday already sold out? I feel like those joint practices can sell out in a hurry. So Thursday, 3 o'clock, Colts and Packers. That's it. So 2 sessions left at Grand Park. James, today could get a little spicy. Hear me out on this. 4 to 5:40. It's one of the longest practices of camp.
Yeah.
3rd straight day in the heat.
Yeah.
Believe it's going to be full pads again. And it's your last Colts versus Colts day. You add up all those things. Shane Steichen's calling it a bit of a scrimmage feel to practice. This has probably been the least fight camp we've seen. You had the joint practice scuffle that you witnessed, but I can't recall too many post-whistle extracurriculars here, Colts versus Colts. So I don't know. Does today get spicy at all?
Heat doesn't help.
I would like to see it a little bit. And I think the team periods bring it out of you. Knowing that Zaire Franklin's now participating in some of the 11 on 11, I wouldn't put it past him to thump somebody.
It's a good point. Now
little
that
bit
he's in
harder.
the team drills.
Yeah. So Michael Pittman Jr. has been kind of tame throughout training camp. Had a little bit of a dust up last week in Baltimore in the joint practice, but it didn't last long. So
I think
we'll
it's
see. I'm
been
curious.
I think it's been an underwhelming camp for number 11, Michael Pittman Jr.
Yeah.
I thought he had a. Did he drop? Yeah, he had the drop. Was that Saturday? I think I was one of the Richardson. Richardson was one of 6, but he laid one perfectly.
Yeah, that was a dime. That
For
was
Pittman
a dime.
in the end zone. Pittman dropped that. I don't know. Like Pierce to me, James, you pointed out good camp. A.D. Mitchell, definitely good camp after struggling in week 1. I think Josh Downs has started to look more like Josh Downs. Michael Pittman Jr.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a few too many drops for my liking, and just generally a little quieter. But maybe with the back, you're just happy that he's out there.
Yeah. Would you say one of their best days as a team was the joint practice that they had last week?
Pose that to James.
James, what do you
Hard
think?
for me to say when I'm not there.
I thought you were in Baltimore, Kevin.
No, I was not.
I'll say this because I didn't get a chance to watch the defense as much. I had to focus on the quarterbacks. I thought that was one of their better offensive days overall. Both quarterbacks actually looked pretty good against that Ravens defense, and they were able to mix it up with some chunk plays down the field, some obviously in between, underneath stuff. And I thought they also had some big runs in there where you saw both quarterbacks' legs get used to the advantage of the offense because doing some of those zone reads, and for those listening, a zone read is basically when you snap the ball to the quarterback and he's going to run or hand it off to the running back, and he just decides basically in the moment whether to keep the ball for himself or give it to the running back. And I thought a couple of times the Ravens guessed wrong, and they were able to break off some big runs by their running backs because they had to pay attention to the quarterback's legs. And so all that in mind, I thought it was a positive step forward for them. We'll see if they can build on it against the Green Bay Packers. But again, they have those moments, and then they have moments where they're not so great. For Anthony, that was Saturday. I don't know how much of that was the pinky or how much of that was just him, sort of being erratic or up and down throughout his career. So we'll see what it looks like in a couple of days. But I'm excited for today, a couple of days off, and then back at it Thursday because we know how seriously those joint practices are taken by both teams because you can put yourself in so many different scenarios.
All right, coming up in a few minutes, we'll talk a little bit more about the Colts, get into some fever as well, but let's get into all of it right now on the Morning Checkdown. All right, let's start on the track yesterday. Another series championship clinched, Kevin Bowen, for Alex Palou, and Will Power gets a win in Portland. It's been an Alex Palou kind of run over the last few years in IndyCar.
Yeah, dominant. He really clinched this a long, long time ago, I guess, officially, once Pato Award had the smoking issue early in the race yesterday. It was all but over there. Palou finished third, so respectable by him still to keep it going there. But yes, Will Power gets it done in victory lane. Team Penske finally has one on the board in 2025, but this year has been all about number 10. Shout out to Alex Palou. One of the greatest seasons we've seen in IndyCar ever.
Yep, fourth championship, and as you mentioned, third yesterday, and Will Power got the win. Over the weekend on Saturday night, the Indiana Fever got a win again over the Chicago Sky, a team they seemed to dominate, 92-70. We, of course, still had no Caitlin Clark, no Arian McDonald, people going down all over the place. Sydney Colson is out for the rest of the season. Lexi Hull stepped up, though, as a starter. She had 17. Kelsey Mitchell led the way with 26. Sophie Cunningham, 10 of her 16 in the first half, and Aaliyah Boston scored 15. Chicago also played without Angel Reese, but 92-70 was the final score. Fever now 18-14, and JB, they will play against Paige Beckers and the Dallas Wings tomorrow night at the Fieldhouse. 7:30 p.m. start, 7:15 airtime with the fan pregame show here with Eddie Garrison. So looking forward to seeing and hearing about that one. We can also let you know that in Major League Baseball yesterday, Cincinnati Reds scored 14 runs on the road to close out a series with the Pittsburgh Pirates. They win at 14-8. St. Louis Cardinals edged the Cubs by a score of 3-2. White Sox got a win over the Cleveland Guardians 6-4. Later on today, the Reds will host the Philadelphia Phillies at 6:10. Cardinals host the Colorado Rockies. White Sox host the Tigers. Cubs have the day off, as do the Indians. And, Mark, you saw the Indians yesterday with your family over at Victory Field.
Fun time, despite it being hot as all hell out there. It was a good time.
Storm
Yeah, I
Chasers
was
did
thinking
win
about that
6-1.
yesterday. I got to make sure that I'm right with my Lord and Savior because I can't go south. It was too hot. The sweat that rolled down my back as soon as I got out the car yesterday was like, yeah, I need to make sure I'm still reading the Bible every day.
You know it's hot when you get the sweat from the hair and it goes all the way down to the crack.
I
And
know.
you're like, all right,
It was
it's
tough.
too hot out here.
Yeah. Programming note with the Colts today, JMV will be out live doing his show from Colts camp. That one starts, the practice starts at 4. Of course, JMV, his normal spot from 3 to 6. What do you expect to see on this final day of practice before the joint practice with Green Bay later this week?
I would like to see Jeff Rickard out there.
I think you might get that. As soon as I pick up the kids from school, drop them off and go to
I'm kidding.
practice.
It's Grant's birthday. Enjoy it with your family. But I want to see some smoke. As Kevin Bowen was saying, I want to see some people get a little rowdy, get a little agitated, and honestly, just some competitive fire, good competitive fire. Nothing reckless, obviously, no injuries. But with so many scrimmages or so many scrimmage periods throughout today's practice, I think it's going to lead to some of that, back and forth that I think you need at this point in the year when you're preparing for the season.
All right. Looking forward to that. Anything in particular you want to see in that one, KB?
Well, quarterbacks are obvious. We haven't probably had a kicking day in a while. Is this Spencer Schrader's job?
Yes.
I think it is, but just some confirmation there. Do we continue to see Latu flash? I think since full pads have come on, he's been one of the best players in the field, period. And then about corner, where are you at from a health standpoint with Kenny Moore, Alec Pierce? Is this a Shane Steichen day? I don't think it is, James. So I don't think we'll get, maybe an update on where things are at after practice. But corner injuries have been abound. Is anyone emerging in that room?
All right, coming up in a moment, we'll talk a little bit more about, I think, a breakout star of camp, according to some of the things we've seen with our eyes and also read and heard, and we'll talk about that next as we continue at 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. 239-1070, not only the number to call, but a number you can text, 317-239-1070, and you can get back to us immediately, and we can take a look at those. And if they're going along with what we're talking about, we can get you some feedback there or even text back to you. You name it. It's going to be a lot of fun. The text line is up and running. In the meantime, we're talking a little bit about the Indianapolis Colts. Obviously, football season coming. We've got one preseason game in the books. We've got another one coming up this weekend. And I want to get back to something we talked about early in the show, Kevin Bowen. Like, the defensive line had a lot of questions coming in, and maybe they're getting a positive answer so far from one in particular along that defensive line. Let's talk a little bit more about Laitu again.
Yeah, Laitu, I think has been really, really good, and probably dating back to that full padded that Thursday night practice. I thought he flashed, and then really has continued to do that here. And, primarily I feel like he's been opposite Braden Smith, too, with a lot of these rushes. They don't blow dead every single sack in camp, and I understand they want to let some of these plays continue to play out. But, yeah, it just seems like he has been in the backfield, I would say, more than really any other defensive lineman throughout practice. And, it's maybe going to be needed even more. Obviously, you need it, period. It goes without saying what an effective edge rusher can mean for your defense. But if you've got cornerback injuries, then you're going to need, that D-line to create some pressure and disrupt that timing more from a front standpoint. So, yeah, I think Latu's had a really good camp. Really, really, really strong.
What does that leave your impressions of the entire defensive line at this point in time? I know it's still got a lot of work to do here with a couple of preseason games, but where are you at right now on the D-line, James Boyd?
I'm not sure because they haven't played a real game. I think, obviously, the preseason game was a bit promising with what we saw from JT Tuimoloau. I thought he had a big performance in that matchup against the Ravens, and so we'll see how it looks against the Green Bay Packers in real live action. Packers suck! In that first quarter.
He's going to get worn out by the end of the week.
Hey, I respect it. The hate is real. But I am curious to see what it looks like against the ones. Like ones-on-ones come Saturday, assuming that Green Bay plays some of their starters. What does that look like when you're going up against Jordan Love and company and trying to, disrupt him? So always hard to tell with offensive line, defensive line. But for the most part, I will agree that Laiatu's flashed. I'll even give us a nod to Samson Ebukam. I think that he's looked, relatively good coming off of the Achilles tear. But again, all of that is, sort of like I have to hedge it by saying it's not real football just yet.
That's something to keep an eye on. And also the other thing we've got to keep an eye on is we've had lots of questions about the linebacking core at this point in time.
Yeah, what are your thoughts
injuries,
on the linebacking
whether
core?
it's guys trying to step up. What do you think, KB?
I think linebackers got a lot of answers left to be had here. Jalen Carlisle, we've seen probably miss about a week now due to an ankle injury, and I would say at that point, his starting job was not secure. So I feel like it's been Joe Bocci next to Zaire Franklin. I think that was the combo yesterday.
Yeah, those would be my two starters right now.
Cam McGrone, number 59, I think still in the mix there. But
Feels like he took a step backwards, though, last week, didn't he?
McGrone?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he was listed as a starter on the initial depth chart there.
But
I think that,
Jeff, when you say he took a step back, in what ways do you think he did?
I think he had an opportunity to step. Maybe that's not the right way. I think he had an opportunity to step up. I don't know that he seized that opportunity. Seemed very invisible back there to me.
I think that I would agree that Joe Bocci's probably the other starter. I think Cameron McGrone might be a good relief guy, but I think that entire linebacking core, honestly, last week against the Ravens, struggled to stop the run. And so that's something to keep an eye on with that unit for sure.
By the way, I think we might have a Rick Carlisle summer chat later this week.
Nice. Just got a little text there.
Yeah, caught up with
on the text line.
Caught up with it. I don't think he's on the text line here. I don't know if he's in the YouTube chat either. But yes, I think Rick Carlisle.
I was going to say, if he's going to get in the YouTube chat, he's got to get in there now. Time's running out.
Might join us later this week.
Ooh, I like that. Looking forward to that. He had a few interesting things to say on a podcast last week too.
Yes, indeed. So yeah, great convo with Caitlin Cooper, and I know we played a couple clips of that, but Rick Carlisle should be joining us here later this week.
All right. As far as we are concerned, JMV is going to be out at Colts camp today. He will do a show as normal from 3 to 6. Camp practice starts at 4. And you're talking about being sold out. You still got to go online. You can get there for free, right? But you still got to go online and get the tickets there. Is that how that works?
Yeah, today, again, Thursday might already be sold out. I thought I had heard that there. I know some of the crowds, and talking with some people from Grand Park, maybe not at the level that they were hoping. Certainly weather has not been super favorable to them from a temperature standpoint. But I actually thought yesterday's crowd, I don't know, eyeballing it, looked pretty decent for how hot it was.
And you were talking about needed your bucket hat yesterday. It's supposed to be, I think, pretty hot again today. So keep that in mind when you do go out there. But
yeah, we were out there begging in the sun. We were looking for you, Jeff.
Did you get your water though?
Yeah, I had the water. Where were you? Where the people want to know when we're out there reporting on camp? Where's Jeff Rickard? And I'm like, I don't know.
Jeff Rickard yesterday was in a car watching a kid drive. That's what was going on yesterday.
Excuses.
No, I need them to get that license. They can only get the license.
You can drive any time of the day. Camp is only at 4 p.m.
No. Camp will be on. We've got.
Is there an analogy there that's similar to watching the Colts quarterback battle play out?
Could be. I think it's better to watch my kid learn to drive sometimes. It's the way that goes on.
So Jeff took his kid driving at 4 p.m. on a Saturday.
No, all day long.
I don't believe it. I don't believe this.
All day long.
I need somebody check the tape, the Ring camera.
Yeah, you can do that.
But no, I'm glad that they're getting the reps in because my dad was. Are you as aggressive as my father was? Because he was. This is how my dad taught me how to drive seriously. And my sister, to this day, I think is a little more traumatized than me. We would be driving on the expressway or driving somewhere, and Mr. Boyd would go, hey, you might want to speed up because if you don't, we're going to get hit and, we could all die or something like that. I'm like, all right, well, yeah,
He'd go there all of a sudden.
Yeah, let me hit the gas a little bit more, or, and he would tell us, the brake, remember the brake? And so, you get a little scared there and you learn how to drive pretty quickly in that household.
So how it works, and look, I might be telling this out of school a little bit. Mom is a little more aggressive than dad. My rule with both the guys when they get in there, and tell me if you guys would be okay with this, I say, look, I'm not going to yell at you. I'm not going to say, stop, or anything like that. I'm just going to think out loud. I'm not going to get mad. I'm not going to yell. But I'm just going to be thinking out loud of what is coming up and what I might want to pay attention to. They seem to respond to that.
So what?
They seem to respond to that.
You should probably not hit that big boulder in front of us.
I'd be thinking about getting into the left lane, but make sure you look over your shoulder to the right. That's about it.
Hey, whatever works.
They like it. They say, no, I like driving with you, Dad. So,
oh, man. My dad was just like, he had two rules, y'all. Remember where the brake is and don't hit anything that's not moving.
My dad would tell the story that when he was learning to drive, my grandfather it was those old cars that just had one seat in the front. Every car's got two bucket seats now. Used to be one big seat across the front, and my grandpa would have his arm resting out behind with his hand behind my dad's head, and every time my dad would screw up, he'd give him a little whack on the back of the head. He said, you learn not to make mistakes real quick, he said.
I do want to pivot real quick here to one of the things that stood out to me throughout camp, Kevin, beyond linebackers and safeties and stuff like that, is we haven't talked much about Nick Cross being out, and he's missed it the last couple of days as well. And so I believe he has a hip flexor. So, we've talked about how they've added to that safety room. But if him or Cam Bynum isn't available, what are the options behind them?
Yeah, I think it might have the least amount of depth on the whole roster.
Yeah, and honestly, I was thinking, is that an opportunity for Hunter Wohler to?
Yeah, Hunter Wohler's been a starter the last couple of days. So
exactly.
Nick Cross, hip, right? Is that what Shane Steichen said post-practice?
Yeah, hip flexor.
I don't know. I'm trying to keep it all in line here from an injury standpoint. Hunter Wohler, number 30, the 7th-round pick out of Wisconsin. He has been a starter next to Cam Bynum the last couple of days. Again, safety is a position that I just think from a depth standpoint, it is really thin back there. So I know we've talked about Wohler. Honestly, we've talked about Wohler probably good amount for a 7th-round pick. Mentioned now for the last couple of weeks, like there's no debating. He's on the roster. I mean, look, he's one injury away from starting right now for this defense. So I guess he's your third safety. I don't know. Maybe if Cam Bynum exited, maybe you would have a different free safety. Wohler, playing that strong with Nick Cross out there. So, that is another. I mean, if you look at yesterday in the secondary, James, I was thinking about this during practice yesterday when Kenny Moore left. Let's say you keep 5 corners. Let's say you keep 4 safeties, 9 defensive backs on your roster. At one point yesterday during practice, 5 of those 9 guys weren't practicing. you were down again 4 of your top 5 corners.
Okay.
Travaris Ward was it, and then at safety, you were only down one of them, but it's a starter,
Right.
in Nick Cross. I mean, that's kind of wild. And again, this gets back into the debate that we constantly have about, okay, what's looking good at camp? If one unit's looking good, does that mean the other unit's looking bad, et cetera, et cetera? Now, the DBs played pretty well against Lamar Jackson last Tuesday. So, we probably should point that out. But I think you're at a point right now with your secondary, particularly at corner, you'd love to see your quarterbacks feasting right now, given the injuries at corner. And I thought yesterday was a fine day for the quarterbacks. I didn't think it was overwhelmingly positive. I didn't think it was overwhelmingly negative. I think right now, if you're evaluating your passing offense against a really banged up secondary, if you go out to today's practice, you would like to see that passing offense flourish, because on paper, it's about as banged up as you can be in the secondary.
We'll talk about being banged up in a moment here as some of the injuries continue to linger. There's been some new ones. A lot of it's just training camp bumps and bruises, but we'll give you information to the best of our ability coming up in just a moment. Also, take a look at some of the crazy things happening outside of Indianapolis in the world of sports. It's coming your way next. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Happy Monday, everyone. Getting ready for another Colts practice a little bit later on today up at Grand Park. And, of course, joint practices with the Packers coming up later this week and then a game this weekend. It's getting closer and closer to NFL season. And, you know, we focus in all the time on what's going on with the Colts, as we should. But I also like to keep an eye, JB, on what's going on with some of the other teams in the AFC South, because that's, 6 football games that you're going to have to play at some point in time. And we saw Travis Hunter play a lot on both sides of the football this past week, and now we're hearing that his coach, Liam Cohen, says he could be playing 80% of the snaps on offense, although defensively is where he's going to be most of the time, but 80% of the snaps on offense, is that still doable, even from a guy with his talent?
No, I don't think so. I think Devontae Adams actually went on, what was that show? The Pivot with Ryan Clark and Channing Crowder and a few others, and I thought Devontae Adams gave a very realistic and respectful dismissal of the idea of playing both ways in the NFL from, one, an injury standpoint, because as we know, every player will tell you when you play in the NFL, you play football for a living, the injury rate is 100%. It's guaranteed. You're going to get hurt. And when you double the amount of snaps or you put yourself in more harm's way by playing a different workload than usual, you're going to get hurt probably more frequently. And then on top of that, from a financial standpoint, it doesn't make sense. I don't know why you would do that. I understand that he's a very talented player, and perhaps there's a couple packages here and there that you can do on offense or defense to kind of get him out there. But to think that he's going to play, on average, more snaps than the average offensive or defensive player, to me, would lead to injuries and perhaps a shorter career over the length of his career, because it's just not feasible, I don't think, at this level.
Kevin, what do you think?
I think some packages could be explored. By all accounts, Jacksonville said this when they drafted him. When you do some of this testing around Travis Hunter, it's pretty rare, the type of stamina that he does bring. Now, having said that, I think it's difficult to ask him to play upwards of 100 snaps for 17 weeks. That's a far cry from the 12 that he played at Colorado there. But I think some spot duty situations would make sense. And honestly, I think it would keep the defense a little bit on their heels of like, oh boy, is this one of the third downs where Hunter's coming onto the field? Or, we haven't seen him here for 4 or 5 plays. They fall asleep on defense. They don't realize he's slid in the huddle, and then boom, he strikes a big play on you. I think Travis Hunter and Brian Thomas Jr. would offer quite the dynamic style there. So and that's probably how I would handle that. I mean, you don't trade up to number 2 overall. You don't give up the future first if you don't think he really can be that type of impact for you. I mean, that was a lot for them to give up from a draft standpoint there. So I would expect it to be on both sides of the ball. Again, I think it can be in doses offensively. And, part of me kind of looks at the AFC South and thinks, boy, if you just had him out there a wideout, you could all of a sudden have maybe the most potent skill group if everything came together for them. That's obviously a little bit of a few boxes that need to be checked there. But yeah, I'd probably handle him in doses offensively.
Yeah, and keep an eye on what's going on with the rest of the AFC South. It sounds like business as usual for the Texans, and the Titans still trying to figure out, they got a new quarterback again, and is this going to work out for them? They got a lot of work to do there. So,
yeah, when you have the worst record in the league last year and number 1 pick, there's always a lot of work to do. But I do think Cam Ward, I'm curious to see what he'll look like as a rookie. And also, his story is incredible. I mean, this is a guy who went from being, a very, I believe, probably underrated recruit at this point, considering where he ended up, to playing what he played at Incarnate Ward, and transferred, I believe, to Miami. And then, obviously had a lot of success there and number 1 pick. And so he's kind of I don't know if there's been like a least hyped number 1 pick in recent years. I can't think of one that has drawn less attention than him. And so maybe he'll have to put the league on notice with some good play this year. And obviously for the Colts fans' sake, they're probably thinking, don't do it against us. But I'm curious to see how he responds. I think him and Calvin Ridley have shown a good rapport in their preseason opener. And if they can build off that, it'll be interesting to see if the quarterback landscape in the AFC South shifts a bit because of his arrival. I mean, if I'm asking me right now to rank the quarterbacks in the AFC South, I would go C.J. Stroud, Trevor Lawrence, and then honestly it would be a toss-up between Daniel Jones, Anthony Richardson, and Cam Ward. And so I will probably pick Daniel Jones or AR over Cam Ward because they've played in the NFL before, but neither one has obviously given me a lot of hope going into this year based off what they did last year. So we'll see.
Kevin, rest of the AFC South, I know you've been so focused on the Colts at camp, but anything that's jumped out of camps that's gotten your eye or gotten your attention?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I haven't really paid too much attention to the rest of the teams. Certainly Houston is the one that is where all the focus is for me. Now, again, I said this when the schedule came out in May. I think it's really good for the Colts that they get Tennessee early when Cam Ward theoretically is still in his growing pains, and you don't get Houston until late. So at that point, you would hope a Lou Anarumo defense is a little bit more in sync. Maybe C.J. Stroud behind a shaky offensive line is a little bit banged up. That's a big time flip from last year's schedule when both those games were before Halloween. This year they are both after Thanksgiving, so I think that is something that definitely benefits the Colts.
Aaron from Minnesota also points out he thinks the threat of playing Travis Hunter on offense gives a defensive coordinator an extra wrinkle every time their team plays the Jaguars. He has also, with Mark, stirred up a great Thin Mints debate again, too, Mark Dykman.
We're going to fight. We don't want to start that again. We went down a rabbit hole. Kevin and I were blatantly team Thin Mints.
Who is team Thin Mint?
Kevin and I.
I do not like Thin Mints.
Oh, Thin Mints are disgusting. Both of you disgust
You can all
me.
leave.
Gosh, man. You guys want to tear that down like you want to tear down the YouTube chat.
Well, hey. The YouTube chat, my heart goes out to the YouTube chat.
Side.
Thin Mints and YouTube chat are not mutually exclusive, okay?
Not today, they're not. 239-1070 number to call if you want to get in on the text line. The fan text line is up and running. We'll do that, but we got some guests coming up in the next hour as well, JB, and I'm looking forward to talking to some of these folks here. So that'll be good. We'll tell you all about that next as we continue on the Fan Morning Show with Chloe Peterson around the corner on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Good morning and welcome into 1320. I was going to say,
What?
The Fan, 1320K Fan back in the day. I got.
What day was this?
A long time ago. Different F and FNI.
What country is that in?
No, this is a true story. I actually worked back in the day at KFNI. It's the other way around. So I've worked at a K and a W.
So this is 107.5 The Fan.
Yes.
And we're excited to have Chloe Peterson on the line. Covers the Fever for Indy Star and has been all over this team that has gone through a lot of ups and downs, injuries. You have it. I feel like every time I open the Indy Star app, there's a story from Chloe Peterson saying someone else is injured and the Fever still won. So, Chloe, what has it been like? I'll start with this. Just keeping up with so many roster transactions. Did you anticipate going into this season that you would have to be writing about so many players joining the team and then obviously, unfortunately, kind of leaving the team, whether it's because of injury for the rest of the season or otherwise?
Yeah, definitely not. I think it's been, 3 leaving the team in some way, whether it be, obviously getting waived or season-ending injuries. And then, obviously some acquisitions as well in response to those. But it's been a lot more than I would have anticipated this season.
Gotcha. And then to follow up to that, I know it was obviously a huge letdown when Ari McDonald got hurt and Sidney Colson got hurt, both out for the season. But we saw the response from Kelsey Mitchell, who was saying this is one of the most resilient teams she's been a part of. I believe Natasha Howard is probably one of the more active Fever players on Twitter. She's always put on a positive message. So how have you seen this team rally despite, it seems like every couple of days getting some news that probably isn't the best for them, but still finding a way to, sit together and win?
Yeah, I think, both Kelsey and Natasha have said, this is one of the teams they feel like they've been closest to or they've felt like have been most connected. And that's something Coach Steph White has said, too, that this is one of the most connected teams they've coached or she's coached. So whether it's from, that early roster movement with, DeWanna Bonner leaving the team and then, the early injuries to Caitlin Clark, Sophie Cunningham, that kind of bonded all of them together. And that's helped them be resilient in this moment where they had those 2 season-ending injuries and they have to pivot once again. It seems like something, obviously, they've done before in a sense of pivoting with injuries, and it's something they know they can work through.
Chloe Peterson from the Star does a great job covering the Fever. She's with us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. Chloe, thanks for joining us. Practice later this afternoon. I'm trying to kind of get my Caitlin Clark ducks in order here. I guess is the next step simply finding out when she returns to practice, and then after that, we're probably looking at a solid week-ish after a return to practice to a potential return to a game. I know I'm throwing out some hypotheticals, but when I lay all that out, how does that sound?
Yeah, that's what I've been thinking too. Last I heard was in Seattle. She had started running full speed, and they haven't really had an official practice since then. They had some practices scheduled when they were on the West Coast, but those ended up getting canceled, and they did walkthroughs instead. So they haven't had an official practice for her to really participate in. And I guess today would be the first opportunity for her. And I think I agree with the 1 to 2 week timeline of her, getting back to practice, because she obviously hasn't played, 5-on-5 in, 3 weeks at this point, nearly a month since she got injured on July 15th. So I think they're going to still be very cautious with, her recovery, especially as this is the 4th muscle injury she's had this season. And I think they just really want to be cautious with bringing her back and kind of taking extra time, making sure she's good with every step they do when it's, kind of just getting back to full speed running and then kind of getting her back into the fold with the team as well.
Chloe Peterson writes for the Indy Star, covers the Indiana Fever, kind enough to join us this morning on the Payless Liquors hotline. Chloe, I'm just curious, if you had to describe what this team has become, I always think resilient They've gone through so many injuries, so many lineup changes, so many different things over the course of this year. There's still 4 games over 500. How would you describe what this team has become?
I mean, I think resilient is that kind of perfect word to describe them. Like, they've obviously had, all of those injuries. You had Sophie Cunningham with the ankle at the beginning of the season. You've obviously had Caitlin Clark and those 3 different injuries she's had to miss time with this season. And then the Dewana Bonner situation where she only played 9 games and then wasn't a fit with the fever, and then these 2 season-ending injuries. It's something they've kind of bounced back from in a way, and obviously, as you mentioned, still are over 500, and that's, I think, something that, not a lot of teams would be able to bounce back from, but just they've been resilient in a way that I haven't seen many other teams be before.
Chloe, I would like to pivot a bit to Kelsey Mitchell. We know that she is a special scorer. I think that she has one of the best first steps on earth, seriously. And the difference in her game yesterday was the distributing. I'm sorry, not yesterday, but a couple days ago, was the distributing. The eight assists, 1 turnover against Chicago. How have you seen Kelsey kind of weather the storm? Because if there's any player who's been through the ups and downs, the dog days, the not so great days, and weathered them with professionalism in class, it's Kelsey. So what has she meant to this group, and how have you seen her kind of grow even more at this stage of her career?
Yeah, I know they talk about, bringing in that veteran experience, obviously, with Natasha Howard winning championships, with Sydney Colson winning championships. But I think, Kelsey Mitchell can also be in that veteran group. Even though she's been with the Fever her entire career, she hasn't been through the playoffs in the same way, Howard and Colson have. But, she brings that, kind of veteran experience and, just grinding through it. She's been on those teams that haven't been good for multiple years, and she knows in those teams she learned how to be versatile. I know she mentioned on Saturday night that she hadn't played point guard since college, but I imagine she'd been asked to do something like that in, her years between 2018, 2023, when, the Fever weren't really at the top of the standings, and she's been able to do whatever the coaching staff has asked of her this year and years before. And she's one of the most, willing, versatile players, I would think, of just being able to do what the team needs. And that's what Stephanie White mentioned, like when they needed an emergency point guard, obviously with all 3 of their natural point guards hurt, it was no question that Kelsey would step into that role, and she obviously did it pretty well.
So the last thing I have, Chloe, is not even a question. It's just more of a statement. So, and I'll ask the guys here on air when we move to the next segment. But I know for you, the inside joke on the Fever beat is Himalayan pink salt, which I had no idea existed. But I will tell you, when I was at Colts camp, what was it, yesterday? Some of the snacks they gave us was literally Himalayan pink salt popcorn. I sent you a picture, and I feel like this stuff cannot stop following me at this point. So I was a bit embarrassed a few weeks ago when I was over at the Fever facility. I did not think Himalayan pink salt was real. It is very real, and the Colts are now trolling me with it.
It can't escape you. I mean, all the Fever players said they knew about it. I think you asked, 4 Fever players?
Yes, I did. I did.
At every turn.
This is true. Well, keep up the great work. I enjoy reading your stuff always, and I'll be joining you on press row here pretty soon, as soon as Colts camp is over. But thanks so much for your time, Chloe.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
There she is, Chloe Peterson on the Payless Liquors hotline right there. And I would say this is a resilient Fever team. 18-14 with all the injuries they've had, as much time as Caitlin Clark has missed. They had the Dewana Bonner distraction more than anything early in the season. And yet they're 18-14 and starting to play better, and I think probably feel pretty good about themselves right now.
Yeah, they're up to the 5th seed in the standings, which, again, if you had told me they were the 5th seed at this point in the year, at the beginning of the year, I would have thought that means Caitlin Clark's in the MVP conversation, and obviously they're not dealing with a lot of injuries and changes. So a bit different, of how it looks, but the results still are worthy to be praised, I think. And then, like I told Chloe, are you all familiar with Himalayan pink salt?
Yes.
I'm
Kevin?
used. Is this in the bin at the hotel?
Yeah, you can
That's what I thought.
No,
But
like,
apparently you cook with it.
is that where you got the popcorn out of that bin in the
Oh,
hotel?
yeah. Yes.
That's where at. 'Cause
Yes.
the only ones I've seen are the white cheddar, which I just dominate.
No, they had Himalayan pink salt popcorn yesterday.
I know
Do
nothing.
you know
How's
what
that?
this is?
Oh yeah.
I did not know what this is. So first of all, I guess it's in Olipop, like which one of the sponsors for the Fever. And so we were sitting there before a press conference. This is probably about a month ago, and Lexi Hull loves these things, and I was trying to read what's in it. It told me Himalayan pink salt's in that thing, and I was like, "You're a liar," because I've never been to the Himalayas. There's no salt that's called Himalayan pink salt, but no, all the Fever players told me, James, you're not cultured enough.
You can get it right off the shelf in any grocery store.
I think they lied and gave Kelsey Mitchell the answer because I asked her if she knew what it was. She was like, no. And they were like, it's the pink one. And she was like, well, yeah. I was like, well, yeah, if you tell her the Himalayan pink salt is pink, she's going to say, I know what it is. So, nevertheless, I digress.
Threw some on. There's a farmer's market in Brownsburg the other day. We went and they had like a corn roast, and I threw some Himalayan pink salt on the corn on the cob. Oh, delicious.
See,
Delicious.
I need to be around. I had to grow up at some
I
point.
love that Mark.
Come to the farmer's market,
I
James.
know.
Farmers markets.
Nora
State
would love to
Fair.
have you.
You find good
This is
food
true.
everywhere. I will tell you that. You seem to find good food just about anywhere.
I will
I get
say,
outdoors. I got 3 kids to feed. I need food aplenty.
Yeah, when I asked Caitlin Clark about the Himalayan pink salt, she looked at me with such disgust, like, who let this guy in the media room? So I'll try to ask more serious questions going forward.
Well, they will be back in action tomorrow night at the Fieldhouse, 7:30 start, 7:15 airtime with fan pregame show Eddie Garrison here at 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Colts getting back to work this afternoon, and they're calling it pretty much a scrimmage today, right? They're going for it today.
Yeah, that's what Shane Steichen used that word yesterday in describing what today's session will be like. So again, 4 to 5:40. It's our final Colts versus Colts practice here of the 2025 training camp. And we are now 12 days into camp, 3 straight days in full pads. It's hotter than you know what. I don't know. Today could be a bit spicy. And again, if you're on paper, judging the injury situation, I think you want the quarterbacks to be guys that are in rhythm right now that have probably one of their more productive days of camp. I think that's the expectation going into today because right now you are so banged up in the secondary. You're down 4 of your top 5 corners.
And as far as wide receivers are concerned, will we see Alec Pierce today after kind of hobbling off yesterday? I don't know. Is Michael Pittman going to play today?
Pittman practiced yesterday. I didn't see him get hurt. I mean, I don't know, maybe a veteran rest day. For
no
3
more
straight
rest.
Days.
Nope. No rest for the weary.
Pittman's usually not one that kind of falls into that group. I don't know. Pierce, I would say no if a guy looks like that yesterday. I thought Pierce was limping pretty noticeably after trying to test out that groin injury.
Speaking of limping noticeably, you noticed something from Anthony Richardson near the end of the day yesterday, James. And you brought it up to the coach, and he hadn't seen it.
Yeah, which I'm not sure if I fully buy into that, but nevertheless, Anthony did come up limping a little bit in one of the team periods, but it wasn't anything that was too concerning to me. But the only reason I followed up with Shane is because every time you think something isn't concerning or isn't a big deal, you learn in journalism to always ask the question because, 1, it could be serious, and then 2, if they dismiss it and it becomes serious, there's some, recourse there to say, well, hey, I did ask you about this and you didn't, tell me what was going on. But I don't think it's anything serious. I wasn't too concerned about it. Even after practice, no one seemed, worried at all, but just something to monitor moving forward today. And I am curious too, Kevin, to see if Anthony will be like, is tapeless a word? Like without the tape on his right pinky. He had less tape yesterday than on Saturday. So I wonder if he'll be feeling good enough to just kind of be back to his natural, tapeless self.
I will say I didn't notice anything. Even Saturday during his bad day of red zone work, James, I didn't think I noticed anything in regards to the pinky. Favoritism towards that. His throws in the individual periods, I didn't think were any, inaccurate nature of an alarming degree. Cam Turner, the QB coach, talked after practice on Saturday. He didn't see any of that. Honestly, the biggest knock on Richardson so far through, if you put Thursday to the side, like isolates Thursday's preseason game, I would say the biggest knock on him through 11, 12 days of practice is he's been really bad in the red zone. I believe it's 4 of 16 if you combine those 2 focus practices. And I get it. When you get in the red zone, you're probably going to run it more. And, schematically, that's going to impact some things. But, Daniel Jones hasn't been 4 of 16 if you just want to compare those 2. in the red zone. So, throwing with anticipation, fitting the ball into tighter windows, all of that is what happens in the red zone. And that, to me, has easily been Richardson's biggest knock. I don't think he's turned the ball over at a very high rate. That's a positive. I think generally the underneath accuracy has been a little bit better, but easily the biggest knock for me in these actual Grand Park practices has been in the red zone.
I'm just curious for both of you. If you were making the depth chart right now, who would be your QB1?
I would start Richardson, but I live in a world where I have one eye towards the future. I don't live in a world where my job's on the line.
JB?
And if I were Shane Steichen and I felt like my job was on the line and it all came down to how many wins I got this very season, I could sit there and saying, well, I might trust Daniel Jones a little bit more.
How would you answer, Jeff, before I give mine? I want to see where you fall.
So I think you have to start Anthony Richardson. This is a guy you took with a very high pick not that long ago. If you're Chris Ballard, you're kind of tied to him. You need him to do well. I think you have to let him start the first couple of games of the year, and you find out once and for all, is this a guy we can trust moving forward, or is it more of the same, a flash here, a flash there, but it doesn't really work out? You need to know sooner rather than later if this is really your guy. And I don't think starting Daniel Jones right out of the gate gives you such a huge advantage that you can't afford to run that experiment out.
I hear what you and Kevin are saying, and I would say, I would like to say my job hat, I might start Daniel Jones. And I might do it because I think that the guy is probably more reliable from a health standpoint and from inaccuracy standpoint. And even if he's boring, we've talked about this, Kevin, the belief internally from the Colts is that if they just get average quarterback play, they're a playoff team. And if I'm trying to save my job, which if I'm Chris Ballard, if I'm Shane Steichen, I think Shane is probably – we've talked about this, Kevin. I think that he's more in the 50-50 split than people kind of want to give him credit for.
He's more of a Daniel Jones believer than probably most want to
exactly.
imagine.
And I think that is because he looks at Daniel and he thinks he's safe. And I can win with safe. And then from that regard, I would probably lean towards Daniel. But personally, yeah, I'm always looking towards the future, but I'm a reporter. I'm not to flex, but my job is not dictated based off of who the quarterback is. It's how well I write about the quarterbacks. And so we'll see how it all shakes out. But if I'm in their shoes, I don't mind them starting Daniel Jones because the experiment with Anthony Richardson has been so start and stop. And then to add to that, even leading up to the season, it's been more of the same. Anthony got shut down in the spring. First preseason game, he gets hurt. And so you wonder in the back of their minds, like, man, is it even worth doing this? Or should we just roll with the guy that we think gives us the best chance to win? And if that's Daniel Jones, then you got to do it. And also, the last point I'll make is you got to be able to look the other players on your team in the eye and tell them you're doing what's best for the team. And how do you have that conversation with Daniel Jones? Not Daniel Jones, with Quentin Nelson, with DeForest Buckner, with Jonathan Taylor, others, and say, I'm doing everything in my power to help this team win if you play the guy you don't think is the best quarterback.
I think there's part of Shane Steichen, too, that looks at it and says, man, from a skill group standpoint, I feel like we're better at the pass catchers especially, and I trust myself in, again, drumming up things offensively, and, I feel like I have the upper hand from a play calling standpoint a week in, a week out, so just give me steady, give me a little bit more reliable at quarterback. I could see that, but again, I firmly live in a world where you need clarity on Richardson, and that's what makes, I think, the question such a difficult one to answer, because Carly Ursay-Gordon's objective, Chris Ballard's objective, and Shane Steichen's objective all, it seems very different. So it doesn't offer, I think, a lot of clarity. Everybody singing from the same hymnal, all of that.
Need Anthony Richardson to just make it to where this is the way it is. I needed to come out and play well and make sure that everybody's on the same page, because I'm clearly the guy that you thought you were getting when you drafted me a few years ago. That's what I need to see.
Shane Steichen just wants a workhorse. Maybe you just want someone that's got that dog in them.
Oh, my God.
People are asking for animal sounds. There you go.
There you go.
I love Mark Dykton. He's the best. All right, let's check
March
it down.
Madness bracket's just been announced.
I was going to say.
We've been talking about it all morning. The Colts back at the practice field in Westfield at 4 o'clock this afternoon, and it sounds like Shane Steichen wants to see a scrimmage before we have joint practices with Green Bay later this week.
Bring it on. I enjoy watching practice a lot more, obviously, when there is teamwork, because then I can see in 11-on-11 periods what actually happened, and it's the closest you can get to real football. So, yeah, if they're, dwindling down on the one-on-one drills, fine by me.
All right, Kevin, anything you're wanting to see today other than just the quarterbacks have an effective, productive, crisp day?
Well, unfortunately, the availability report is one to keep an eye on, just given their injury situation right now. I want to say, 5-6 starters maybe currently out. Kwity Paye, we haven't mentioned him with a groin. We talked about Nick Cross briefly. So, and then again, do we continue to see disruption from a guy like Latu Latu? I think he's been one of the better players in camp. And so does that continue in full pads? Final day, Colts v. Colts here of training camp.
JMV will be out there doing his show live from 3 to 6. The practice starts at 4. We'll give you all the details as it happens right here on the 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. Meanwhile, the Indiana Fever hit the court again this past Saturday night at the Fieldhouse. 92-70 winners. They improved to 18-14. Kelsey Mitchell, 26 points. In the absence of Caitlin Clark, she has really stepped up and emerged as a legitimate top-tier scorer. She's always been, but you're reminded of what a top-tier scorer she can be.
But I think the scoring is secondary, honestly, to the storyline of Saturday's game, because she had 8 assists to 1 turnover. So I think her being able to score and also facilitate is what helped them get over the hump in that game, but also speaks to Kelsey's overall ability to play the game at a high level. She's not just a scorer. I think that she's kind of that by nature, but to change the stripes a little bit for that game was impressive, and we'll see if it continues here tomorrow, I believe, against the Dallas Wings.
It's curious. I'm curious to see, once Caitlin Clark does get back, if Mitchell continues to be the scorer that she has been, and we see contributions consistently from people like Aaliyah Boston and Lexi Hall and Sophie Cunningham, that could make life a little bit easier. It's going to be tougher for teams to just take one person and follow Caitlin Clark everywhere all the time and try to cut her off and double team her at the half court stripe and all those things, because those other folks will be open, and they've been cooking.
Yeah, but honestly, if my defensive scout would still be double Caitlin Clark and make everybody else beat me. So we'll see what happens if and when she comes back, and so I'm hoping that obviously it's sooner rather than later.
I forget where I saw it, but James, you see that video of several WNBA players? They were asked the question of who's the hardest player in the league to guard, and Kelsey Mitchell had a ton of answers.
Yeah.
And it is a reminder, again, I think at times, you've done a great job of it, but I don't think maybe people generally realize, A, how great of a scorer she was at Ohio State,
yeah,
and B, how great of a scorer she's been here in the W, and how league-wide there is a ton of respect for her.
Oh, we got some music here.
Yep, computer just went nuts.
Is that one of your ringtones, your custom ringtones?
No, that was an ESPN commercial. Sorry.
Gotcha. But no, going back to Kelsey Mitchell, before I was rudely interrupted by Jeff's laptop, she's one of the best scorers in the W, and I think the part that stands out the most, Kevin, is that she's a great one-on-one scorer. And I think when you get to the professional ranks, whether it's NBA or WNBA, or even some of the college ranks as well, the best players can bail you out when the defense is set or they have the right read or the right call. She'll make you right because she's just so much better at putting the ball in the basket than most humans are. So I enjoy her game, and I'm glad for her. And then Kelsey, from just a personal standpoint, she's been through so much personally off the court, dealing with the death of her father, her mom going through some health challenges, and just being a consummate pro, a great human. How can you not root for that?
All right. Again, tomorrow night they'll take on the Wings. That one comes your way 7:30.
For the 90th time this season. I feel like they play the Dallas Wings every other week. Good Lord.
And the Wings aren't good.
All right. We have a winner already in IndyCar. Alex Palou picks up his 4th series championship. He finished 3rd yesterday at Portland, a race that was won by Will Power. But as you said earlier today, Kevin, it is Alex Palou's world, and the rest of us are just trying to stay in the rearview mirror at this point.
Yeah, I guess Penske Penske was finally able to get a W here. Will Power in what I guess could be his final season with Team Penske. We'll have to see how that plays out. Finally get it done. But yes, Alex Palou really on cruise control. Finishes 3rd in the race. That's pretty good when he didn't need to do anything too crazy with Pato O'Ward having issues. So I guess it'll be fun. We get 2 ovals coming up to end the year, off week, and then Milwaukee and Nashville to round it out. But from a season series drama, that is complete. Alex Palou is your season series winner.
All right. Also, PGA playoffs have kicked off. Justin Rose wins at St. Jude in the absence of Rory McIlroy, who's got so many points. He's like, yeah, I think I'll take this first one off and come back and play with you later.
Sounded like a hell of a playoff. Colts camp had me occupied, but sounded like him and JJ Spawn. Great playoff there. Tommy Fleetwood once again winless on the PGA Tour as he was unable to close the deal.
Major League Baseball later on today. The Reds will host the Philadelphia Phillies. Cardinals host the Rockies. The White Sox start a brief early week series with the Detroit Tigers. That's what's happening in the world of sports.
Did you see the NASCAR driver, the 19-year-old that was celebrating a victory and broke his collarbone?
Yeah.
Did you see that? He fell out of his car.
Slipped trying to get out of the
Oh,
car.
He's trying to celebrate. He was standing on the windshield and fell over and cracked his
No.
collarbone. That is all.
That's tough.
Ugh.
Yeah, that was a tough
sounds
one.
You said he's 19?
Yeah.
Well, the good thing, and jokes aside, is that you're very young, so hopefully you can recover very quickly. But, man, that is...
You want to hear the scary quote from him afterwards? Connor Zilish says he's grateful to be walking.
Yeah, he fell.
He
I mean,
thought he was gonna
that
break
was
his
that
neck.
was
he
a
fell
no joke
super
fall.
hard?
Yeah.
Oh,
He
yeah.
was gonna
Oh,
break
I
his
thought it was
neck.
like a
His leg
clumsy-
got caught in the open window and he flipped over and landed right on his shoulder.
Oh.
It was a brutal fall.
Okay, well, yeah, I'm glad that he's okay.
All right, more Colts conversation coming up in just a moment as we turn our attention to Jake Arthur from Colts SI. That'll be coming your way next. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. Good morning and welcome into another show on the eve of the NFL season. The Colts will be practicing this afternoon at 4 o'clock, and we'll tell you all about that as the day goes along, getting ready for a second preseason game against the Green Bay Packers later on this weekend. We turn now to the Payless Liquors hotline once again. How many times you going to play that today? How many
Stop
times you got
mentioning
that?
my full name, and I'll stop doing it.
Green Bay Packers.
Packers suck.
You know who doesn't suck? Jake Arthur covers the Colts on SI. Also
What a
co-host
transition.
of Locked On Colts, and he joins us now to talk a little bit more about the horseshoe. Jake, we'll throw you into the deep end. We were having this discussion just a moment ago. First of all, thanks for being here this morning. We appreciate that as always. If you were making up the depth chart right now, who would you start at quarterback right now?
Oh boy, yeah. So I'm sure the guys can attest to this. This kind of changes day to day. I feel like almost. At the beginning of camp, I leaned a little bit towards Daniel because I didn't really know what we could expect from Anthony, and I kind of expected a little more from Daniel, to be honest. But Anthony, I think the race is close enough to where if Anthony makes it out of camp healthy, I think you kind of give it to him as a tiebreaker. He's definitely had the more explosive plays in camp. He's definitely not had as high of completion percentage as Daniel, but he's also getting the ball downfield more often. And I don't know. I think the chance to give the offense life certainly looks like it's more in the hands of Anthony right now. That's not to say they couldn't run a successful offense with Daniel. I just think it would be a bit more methodical and probably lack a little more explosion. But if all's the same and it's neck and neck this time in a week or two, I think Anthony's probably the way to go as long as he stays on the trajectory that he's at. Because I think he's had overall a pretty decent camp and has kind of answered some of the questions we had coming in.
The bio reads Jake Arthur, Colts SI, Locked On Colts, and he does not suck, according to Jeff Rickard, which I would endorse as well. You could edit that in
Love
there
it.
as well. Jake, appreciate the time here. I want to go back to last Thursday. You were in Baltimore, and to me, I thought the biggest issue from the Richardson experience in that game was not necessarily that he got hurt, was how he got hurt, and that it was his own sort of mistake. And then, people push back on me and say, well, hey, he's still a rookie in games played. It's probably an unfair question to ask, but let me ask it this way. Do you think internally they still say that about Anthony Richardson hiccups? You think, within that building, they're still saying, well, guys, I mean, he hasn't played even a full year of games. We got to continue to be patient with him. Is that still, you think, a common theme? And how long do you think, if it is?
Well, I mean, it's kind of the thing they tell us, if we question whether it's Chris or Shane or someone about, a mistake that was made, it's usually they point at his depth or his youth and that he still needs reps and things. But at a certain point, he is young and he does need the reps to kind of create that catalog in his mind of what needs to happen. However, checking for pre-snap pressure and an unblocked man is kind of base stuff. You know what I mean? It was a mistake and he admitted it, and he was kind of hyper focused on the left side of the ball because he thought the nickel was going to blitz instead. But when he had already kind of identified where he thought the pressure was, he did not look over to the right. And we've seen guys before, Carson Wentz, that was a huge problem with him. Gardner Minshew struggled a lot with identifying pre-snap pressure. I mean, it can be a big problem. So those guys were obviously veterans into their second contract, so not every guy learns it. But, that kind of at some point has to no longer be an excuse. I mean, mistakes are made, sure, and everyone gets the grace to make mistakes, but at the same time, you're trying to win games too. Because I no longer think this year is about his development like the last couple years were. It's all about wins, however they can get them.
Jake, I do want to pivot a bit to the defensive side of the ball, and there's a lot of injuries there as far as some key players. Kenny Moore II went down yesterday with a knee injury, and Nick Cross has missed the last couple of days with the hip flexor. So how do you feel about that side of the ball and perhaps just them trying to get through these last couple of weeks healthy before the season? Are you worried at all about the depth now that some of these injuries have kind of popped up?
What I'm worried about is that Yumi and KB have to bring our shoulder pads with us to Grand Park later.
Oh, boy.
I'm not really looking
Oh,
forward to that. But no, I mean, I think it's definitely a cause for concern. I mean, I don't know how worried I am about Cross. You know, I don't know how long a hip flexor will keep him out. What is not great overall is corner. You know, Justin Wally, we know that's done for the year. I think we're all kind of waiting with bated breath on what's going on with Kenny. And then Jalen Jones and Juju Brents, you know, we asked Shane yesterday if there's any update on them, and there wasn't. And they've been out, like 2 weeks now with hamstring injuries, and we know hamstring injuries can go weeks and weeks. So I definitely think that's a concern. I mean, how many corners have they brought in, you know? So right now, what was it, like Jonathan Edwards and Charvarius Ward and Kenny and the nickel? And then with Kenny out, you know, you have to bring Chris Lamont. So as it is, it's really not. I wouldn't say it's a week one ready cornerback room, because guess what? You have Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Tua coming at you, and whatever Darren Waller can provide, you know, as he comes back from retirement. So they've got an immediate test week one, and this cornerback room is in rough shape if the health doesn't improve pretty quickly.
Jake, how do you feel about the the linebacker core at this point in time?
So I have cautious optimism there. I was very critical of them not really making any moves there. And, I mean, Jalen Carlisle, I don't think it's official that he's been demoted, but I think his spot is way more up for grabs now than we thought it was earlier. I think Joe Bocci has turned out to be an excellent player in pass coverage. We'll see what this looks like against the run. I'm pretty confident that Zaire Franklin, you know, he's had his bumps in the road, but overall that's a player that you would want to have. But I'm just very curious if their run defense is going to be good enough. Because so far what we've seen from a lot of these guys this summer is really good in pass coverage. But if last Thursday against the Ravens was any indicator, run stopping might be a little bit of an issue. But we just got to see more games and see if these guys can kind of step up.
Okay, you can find Jake's work, Locked On Colts, fun listen there. They've expanded the crew. Shout out to Derek Schultz, Alan Pinkett, and joining Zach Hicks and Jake for a couple shows a week, and then SI, where Jake's written work is. All right, Jake, nothing says it's summer like me saying, how about a Mount Rushmore? Mount Rushmore of Colts training camp players in 2025. Give me the 4 best Colts players in this year's training camp.
Okay, let's do this one. Okay, so I think Alec Pierce is probably a good one to throw up there. Latu. Man, are we comfortable with Joe Bocci being on the Mount Rushmore?
Okay, I will give you a glimpse into mine. I had Latu and I had Bocci, so yes. And I think some of it too is not just like, are you having a great training camp, but also like, are you now needed to play a big role? You know, like, and I guess, yeah, you do have to be somewhat good in order to do that. But like Hunter Wohler, I don't know if he's been one of the 4 best players, but like all of a sudden, here's a 7th round pick that's 1 play away from playing every snap at safety. So I had Latu, I had Bocci as 2 of my 4. Go ahead and finish yours.
Okay, yeah. So I like that reasoning there, like making yourself known first and foremost, and making yourself quite a bit of a commodity. So yeah, Latu, we'll say Bocci, Alec Pierce. And, man, this last one's tough. Wooler's a good one, but I think Tyler Warren looking like everything they wanted him to be is a very, very good sign, because as a rookie, he would kind of have an excuse to not look great right off the bat, you know. So I think Tyler Warren might be my last one as a guy who certainly looks like he could provide the offense a lot of relief.
You and I both there. I went 80 Mitchell. I know week 1 was poor. I think purely in camp, though, you can make a case for him. I thought about Charvarius Ward. I feel bad. I feel like they just don't throw it near him anymore, and that's probably a compliment to him. And I know he probably has struggled a little bit here lately. He had a drop yesterday, had a couple of drops in the game on Thursday. But again, just purely training camp. I didn't think Anthony Gould, the young wideout out of Oregon State, I thought he had a nice camp really up until these last couple days.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And the 81 is great. You know, I especially if it's just based on training camp, because I don't know that any receiver has really popped and exploded quite that way. I mean, Alec Pierce has had some really big moments, especially early in camp. But no, A.D. Mitchell has been such a breath of fresh air, especially considering what his track record was last year. We obviously have to see it in games, but no, A.D. Mitchell is doing everything he can to have an awesome camp.
I honestly think that both of you all have shorted Tyler Goodson because he told us yesterday that his
Okay.
hands work. And so from
They
a
do.
fighting standpoint, I'm going Tyler Goodson on my Mount Rushmore because he showed us that his hands work in the boxing that he did, his cardio in the offseason. Came in handy literally in that Baltimore joint practice. But Jake, as always, brother, I appreciate you coming on, and we will see you later today.
Of course, fellas. We'll see you later.
See you,
All
Jake.
right. That was Jake Arthur, covers the Colts for SI, joining us on the Payless Liquors hotline. And always good to hear from Jake and hear his perspective because he honestly does. One thing I'll give Jake credit for, and I appreciate about our group, is that we do collaborate on, like, okay, who's doing what throughout training camp. And Jake genuinely does care about every single player on the roster. And he could probably tell you every player on the roster, where they went to school, how long have they been in the league, what they could contribute. And so when he's, saying that Joe Bocci is a guy who could be big for this team, you all, I think that's a underrated name there, perhaps, and from a household standpoint in Indianapolis. But keep an eye out for him seriously when it comes to that linebacker room.
All right, coming up in a moment, get back to the text line. Some questions about the Colts for you guys as well at 239-1070. We'll do it next at 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Good morning and welcome into the Fan Morning Show. James Boyd, Kevin Bowen. I can't speak
I was
today.
going to say, I think
I need
Boyd
more
is pretty
sleep.
simple to say.
Bowen.
4 letters, brother.
No, you're going to be James Bowen and Kevin
Oh,
Boyd.
Lord.
You guys had a
Yeah.
baby.
How about that?
Congratulations.
So it goes-
Expecting
he'll
fathers
be
here.
driving
I'll tell you
anytime
what, I
soon.
need my child support on time, Kevin.
It's been quite the last week. Mark
Kevin?
texting my wife, and now me and James Boyd having a baby.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think honestly, Mark, you might be off the hook now.
Love
I think
it.
me and Maddie have
Kevin is
conversations to
expecting a
have.
third. I just thought it was with Maddie. Apparently not.
That's
Does
right.
Maury
We've
have
got
any
some-
openings we could go on?
We've got a lot of news breaking today.
I'm not great at changing Pampers.
father.
Do I run off the show now?
So many questions. Jamie's got a question, though, on the text line. About the quarterback, something he hasn't heard anybody answer. What time are they getting to the facility? How late are they staying? Curious after the rumblings last year of AR's questionable work ethic, how everybody's going. I haven't heard any questions about that, James. I think everybody's doing their job, aren't they, so far? That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, I can't sit outside the Colts facility and stalk the quarterbacks.
What do you mean? You're on the bushes up there in
Yeah,
Westfield?
I'm thinking
You're already
kinda-
charting kicks and passes. Chart when they're
Exactly.
clocking in.
I don't. All right, this is as blunt as I can put this, and I truly have to be safe for our work purposes. I don't care about that at all, and I say that with all respect to the people who think that's a big deal. But to me, I don't necessarily know if that is a huge deal when you win, and I think that can be overstated to a degree because I'm sure there's plenty of quarterbacks that have come early and they've stayed late and they have been terrible. So, you know what I mean? And there's been quarterbacks, I'm sure, that have. Brett Favre told us after his career, he didn't know what, like, a nickel defense was.
What the hell is Brett Favre doing here?
And, and then obviously went on to do other nefarious things. But the point being, I think that what we've heard so far is that Anthony, and he said it himself, he's done more. Now, what that more is, we have not heard specifics. But for his purposes, yes, he probably does need to come and stay, and do all those different things and go above and beyond from just the optic standpoint. But does it really matter? I don't know for sure. I think that quarterbacks have to do all the cliches because to them, it's more than a cliche and it's a narrative. But I don't really care about that.
At the end of the day, people just care about, does it translate on the field?
I know.
You can show
Like,
up at 9:30 if you want to.
Perfect example is Cam Ward. He's saying, I get to the facility at 5 a.m. and if I can't get there early like that, then I'm not meant to be a franchise quarterback. And all the Titans fans, and I would do the same thing if I was in their shoes, they're eating it up. Oh, we got a real quarterback. He means business. If he goes out there and loses every single game, you're going to be like, well, why were you there that early? What were you learning? So, I don't know. I feel like maybe it's the offseason, and I do it myself too. I get caught up in every little thing that everybody does, but you got to win.
Yeah, I'd probably push back on that. I think I'm not sitting here acting like you need to be there at 3 a.m., but I think it's important when you play a position that brings that amount of money, the C on the chest, that you create a standard.
But they've given him the C regardless.
Right, which I mean
That's a whole different
that's a
conversation.
different
right
conversation.
there.
Okay, fair.
But yes.
Fair.
And James, I think you can point to this. I think the general Anthony Richardson is not doing enough Monday through Saturday is more of a, hey, we need you here at 8. Well, the key card's swiped at 7:59. And hey, this meeting ends at 3 o'clock, and it's start up the car at 3:01. It's just kind of that of like,
That's
again,
fair.
it's not egregious,
Yeah.
but when you make the amount of money and go to Thursday night, to some people, they watch that play unfold on Thursday night and they look at that as like an offensive line mistake.
Mhm.
Where it's like, no, that's on the quarterback's plate. Like there is so much on the quarterback's plate to what you need to be able to identify. And that's just within a game. Obviously, there's a lot from a preparation standpoint. So, Jamie, appreciate the question. But, Quentin Nelson, for what it's worth yesterday, he was very effusive in his praise publicly of, how Anthony Richardson has worked here in this camp. And I didn't think it was necessarily, maybe he just felt the need to say that. But Nelson has never struck me as a guy that is like, man, I probably should say something positive. And he went out of his way to really praise Anthony.
Is he even 24 yet? How old is Anthony Richardson?
23.
23? Yeah. Still growing into yourself a little bit, too. I think sometimes guys come out, they're huge draft picks, and we expect a lot from them, rightfully so, right out of the gate. Sometimes a little more maturity is needed. Maybe that's the case with Anthony, and we'll find out. Again, practice later on today, 4 o'clock up at Grand Park. JMV will be doing his show live from there from 3 to 6. Make sure you stop by, say hi to him. Jay Query comes your way at noon today. Any final words or Packers suck or anything like that, Mark, before we head out today?
Packers suck.
Just want to give you.
Suck. Packers suck.
I thought maybe we get an animal sound or two on the way out too.
I don't know what is a Packer. I need to look at what
Have
is
a
that?
great Monday.